Hello to all fans of Naruto Lemon. I will post all Naruto Lemon Yaoi, Yuri, or Naruto Lemon stories only on the Boosty channel because Uncle YouTube condemns this. Therefore, I invite everyone who wants Naruto Lemon content to my Boosty channel. Good luck.
お前はどこまで見えている俺の死に様か
Chapter 1, The Rift. Fubuki's breath came in sharp bursts as she faced her opponent. Her hand gripped the handle of her sword tightly, eyes narrowed in concentration. The air around her shimmered with tension as she watched the Hero Association's top-ranked villain, a monstrous figure of pure power, charging toward her. "You really think you can defeat me?" the villain scoffed, his voice booming across the ruined battlefield. "You're nothing compared to my strength." Fubuki's eyes flashed with determination. She wasn't going down without a fight. "Don't underestimate me," she muttered, crouching low, ready to strike. The villain lunged, but before Fubuki could react, something strange happened. The ground beneath her feet cracked open, and a glowing rift appeared out of nowhere. Fubuki barely had time to register the phenomenon before the pull of the rift yanked her off the ground. Her surroundings blurred, colors twisting and warping as she was sucked through the rift. "What's happening?" "No!" Fubuki shouted as the world around her disappeared, leaving only the overwhelming force of the pull. With a violent jolt, everything stopped. Fubuki stumbled, disoriented, as she found herself standing on solid ground again. She blinked, her mind racing to catch up with what had just happened. Her surroundings were nothing like the ruined city she had been in. She was in a village, trees and wooden buildings surrounded her, and the air smelled different, fresher. The sky above was a brilliant blue, but there was something odd about the feeling in the air. A sense of power, yet something calm. "What is this place?" Fubuki muttered, taking in her unfamiliar surroundings. She tried to calm her racing heart, but a sense of unease lingered in her chest. The rift had brought her somewhere far from home, and she had no idea how to return. She instinctively reached for her weapons, but something was wrong. Her sword, which had always been at her side, was gone. Panic surged within her. "What's going on?" Before she could process further, a voice called out to her. "Hey! Are you okay?" Fubuki turned toward the voice, her instincts immediately on high alert. A man stood before her, wearing a cloak with a strange symbol on it, a leaf, surrounded by a swirl. His blonde hair, bright and spiky, and his calm but serious demeanor told her he wasn't someone she could underestimate. The man studied her carefully, noticing the confused look in her eyes. "You're not from around here, are you?" Fubuki narrowed her eyes, warily keeping her distance. "Where am I?" "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice firm. The man smiled, though his expression remained cautious. "I'm Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage of the Hidden Leaf Village." He paused, his gaze softening. "And you are?" "Fubuki," she replied, still on edge. "What is this place? Why am I here?" Minato's expression grew serious, sensing the confusion and fear in her voice. "You've come from another world, haven't you? You've crossed dimensions. I don't know how, but it seems like you've ended up in the ninja world." Fubuki's mind reeled as she processed his words. "Ninja? World," she muttered to herself. This was all too much to take in. One moment she had been fighting for her life, and now, she was somewhere else. She needed to understand, but there was no time to dwell on her confusion. "I need to get back," she said urgently, her gaze hardening. "This place isn't where I belong. I have unfinished business back home." Minato's eyes softened, but there was something in them, something that told Fubuki he knew the situation wasn't so simple. "I'm sorry, but I don't think you can return just yet." He gestured to the sky. "The rift that brought you here, it hasn't reopened. And without the right tools or knowledge, it may be impossible to find a way back." Fubuki's heart sank. "What?" she whispered. "You mean I'm stuck here?" Minato nodded solemnly. For now, it seems that way. Fubuki felt a surge of frustration. She had no idea how to survive in this world, everything felt so foreign. What am I supposed to do here, she asked, her voice tinged with bitterness. Minato gave her a reassuring smile. You're not alone. I'll help you. We'll figure something out. But first, let's get you somewhere safe. Fubuki wanted to argue, but exhaustion suddenly hit her like a wave. Her body ached from the fight, and the disorienting experience of being pulled through a rift had taken a toll on her. Her senses were on edge, but she couldn't help but feel a small flicker of hope at Minato's words. She might not be able to go back to her world right away, but maybe, just maybe, she could find a new purpose here. All right, Fubuki said reluctantly, her shoulders slumping. I'll trust you for now. Minato nodded. Follow me. I'll take you to the village. The walk to the village was a blur of strange sights and sounds. The air smelled of fresh earth and wood, and the village itself seemed peaceful, but Fubuki knew better than to let her guard down. This was a new world, and she was a stranger here. As they walked, Minato kept talking, trying to explain more about the world she had landed in. This is Konoha, the Hidden Leaf Village. It's a place where ninjas live and train. The people here are very powerful. In fact, I'm the Hokage, the leader of this village. Fubuki raised an eyebrow, trying to process his words. Ninjas? Hokage? It all sounded like something out of a fantasy story, and yet, Minato spoke with such authority that she couldn't doubt him. People who can control their chakra, Minato continued, sensing her confusion. It's the energy that flows through every living thing. It's what allows us to perform powerful techniques. I imagine you've never seen anything like it. Fubuki shook her head. No. I'm not familiar with chakra or any of this ninja business. She glanced at Minato. But if you're a leader here, then I'm guessing you have some way of sending me back to my world? Minato paused, glancing at her with a serious expression. I don't know how to send you back, but I will help you try. We'll need to gather information and figure out how this happened. But first, we need to get you settled here. Fubuki's mind raced as they entered the village. There were children playing in the streets, merchants selling goods, and ninjas walking around, some in full gear while others carried scrolls or tools. It was a bustling, vibrant place, but there was an undercurrent of tension that Fubuki could feel. This was a village full of warriors, people who lived and died by their strength. Minato led her to a small house near the center of the village, where she could rest and gather her thoughts. The moment they stepped inside, Minato gestured for her to sit down. Please, make yourself comfortable. We'll figure out what to do next. Fubuki nodded, still processing everything. She had no idea how long she would be stuck in this world, or what the future held for her, but one thing was clear, she couldn't just sit idly by. She had to adapt. She had to survive. And maybe, just maybe, she could make this new world her own. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2, Unlikely Allies. The following days after Fubuki's arrival were a blur of strange customs, new faces, and, most daunting of all, a complete lack of understanding of how this world worked. But the Hidden Leaf Village was peaceful, or so it seemed on the surface. Beneath the tranquility, Fubuki could feel the power of the village's people, the hidden strength that ran through the very air. Despite her disorientation, one thing was clear, she could hold her own in battle. Minato, after observing her capabilities in combat, decided it was time to introduce her to the ninja way. Fubuki, Minato said one morning, as they stood outside the gates of the village, if you're going to stay here, you might as well learn the way of the ninja. It will help you understand this world and perhaps even give you a better chance of finding a way back. Fubuki nodded, determined. I'm no stranger to combat. I've led battles, and I know how to win. But I need to understand how things work here. Minato smiled, his usual calm demeanor never wavering. Good. I'll introduce you to some of the village's top shinobi. They'll train with you. Later that day, Fubuki found herself in the training grounds. surrounded by a group of young shinobi. She studied them carefully, noting their stance, their movements. They were quick, efficient, but lacked the raw power that she had come to expect from her own fighters. "So, this is where you train?" she asked, tilting her head as she observed a few sparring matches. One of the young ninjas, a boy with dark hair, approached her. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki." "You're the new person, right? Minato-sensei said you're a strong fighter." Fubuki gave him a small smile. "I'm no stranger to a good fight." "Show us what you've got then," Naruto said, eager. "I'm sure you're strong, but I want to see for myself." Fubuki chuckled. "Alright, Naruto. But don't say I didn't warn you." The others gathered around as Fubuki faced off against the eager young ninja. Naruto, full of energy and confidence, charged first, throwing a series of punches. But Fubuki was faster. With one swift movement, she sidestepped him and placed a hand on his back, gently pushing him off balance. Naruto stumbled but quickly regained his posture. "Whoa, you're fast. But I'm not done yet." He threw another punch, more calculated this time. Fubuki met it with ease, twisting his arm behind his back and gently pinning him to the ground in an almost playful manner. The group of young shinobi gasped in awe. Alright, Fubuki said, letting him go. "You've got some potential. But you'll need more than just speed to win a fight." Naruto grinned, getting back up with a sparkle in his eyes. "That was awesome. You're like a real pro." Fubuki smirked. "I've been fighting for a long time, kid." Minato, who had been observing from the sidelines, walked over with a thoughtful expression. "Impressive. You've got the basics down, but there's more to being a ninja than raw strength." Fubuki raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "You'll need to learn chakra control," Minato explained. "It's the energy that allows us to perform jutsu, our special techniques. Without it, you'll be limited." Fubuki crossed her arms. "Chakra? Sounds complicated." "It can be," Minato said, "but once you get the hang of it, you'll have a whole new set of tools at your disposal. I'll help you learn." Over the next few weeks, Fubuki dedicated herself to learning chakra control. Minato personally guided her, teaching her the basics. At first, it was frustrating. She was used to her raw physical power, not this mysterious energy that flowed within her. But with Minato's patient teaching, she slowly began to understand the concept of chakra and how to manipulate it. One evening, after a particularly grueling session, Fubuki sat on a rock, exhausted. Minato joined her, handing her a cup of water. She accepted it gratefully, taking a sip before staring out at the village in the distance. "You're getting better," Minato said, sitting beside her. "I can see you're starting to understand chakra. You're a fast learner." Fubuki glanced at him, a small smile tugging at her lips. "You really think so?" "I do," Minato replied. "You're adapting quickly to this world. And you've got a strength that isn't just physical. It's mental too." Fubuki looked at him, meeting his eyes. "I have to keep moving forward. There's no going back. But I'm starting to feel like maybe there's something worth staying for." Minato smiled softly, his eyes thoughtful. "That's good to hear. You're not alone here. We'll figure it out together." The days that followed were filled with intense training. Fubuki learned how to summon small amounts of chakra to enhance her speed and power. She practiced with Naruto, who was always eager to learn from her, and gradually became a more integral part of the village's defense strategy. It wasn't long before the village began to feel like home. However, peace in the village was never guaranteed. Rumors of a growing threat began to circulate, an organization that was planning something sinister. The village's leaders were on high alert. One day, as Fubuki trained with Minato, an urgent message arrived from the village's scouts. Lord Hokage, one of the shinobi, called, running toward them. "We've spotted a group of rogue ninjas near the border. They're carrying something dangerous." Minato's eyes darkened. This could be the threat we've been hearing about. We need to move quickly. Fubuki stepped forward, her hand instinctively going to the hilt of the sword she had reclaimed from the village armory. I'll join you. Minato gave her a steady look. This is dangerous, Fubuki. You're not fully trained yet. I don't care, she said, her voice unwavering. I've been fighting my whole life. Let me help. Minato hesitated, but then nodded. All right. Stay close to me, and don't do anything reckless. As they made their way toward the village's outskirts, Fubuki's heart raced. She had only just begun to understand the way of the ninja, but the fight that awaited them would be unlike anything she had faced before. But with Minato by her side, she felt ready for anything. The battle against the rogue ninjas was brutal. They were skilled, but Fubuki's agility and raw power kept them on their toes. She and Minato fought side by side, coordinating their attacks flawlessly. The rogue ninjas, realizing they were outmatched, tried to retreat. Not so fast, Minato muttered, his voice cold as he readied his kunai. Fubuki, on instinct, lunged at one of the retreating figures, using a jutsu to amplify her speed and strike swiftly. Within moments, the threat was neutralized. As the dust settled, Minato turned to Fubuki, his eyes filled with respect. You did well. You're stronger than I thought. Fubuki wiped the sweat from her brow, giving him a rare smile. I told you I could handle myself. Minato's expression softened, a hint of admiration in his gaze. You're more than just a strong fighter, Fubuki. You're someone I can rely on. Fubuki's heart skipped a beat at his words. She had come to Konoha out of necessity, but now, for the first time, she realized she was beginning to find a place here, a place where she could belong. The bond between her and Minato had evolved into something deeper, something undeniable. And for the first time since her arrival, Fubuki felt a sense of peace in this new world. End of Chapter 2. Chapter 3, The Unspoken. The days in the Hidden Leaf Village were becoming routine for Fubuki. Training sessions with Minato were now a regular part of her life, as were sparring matches with Naruto and other ninjas in the village. Every day, she felt herself growing more comfortable in this world that had once seemed so foreign. Yet, as the weeks passed, there was one thing that remained constant, her sense of longing. Despite her increasing involvement in the village's defenses, Fubuki couldn't shake the nagging feeling that she didn't belong here. She had come from a world where she was a leader, a fighter, a woman who had always been in control. Now, she was an outsider in a world where things were governed by strange rules, rules she had yet to fully grasp. But it wasn't just the feeling of being lost in a new world that weighed heavily on her heart. No, it was something else entirely, the growing connection between herself and Minato. It had started as simple camaraderie. Their shared mission to protect the village had brought them close, and the trust they had built over their training and battles had evolved naturally into something deeper. Fubuki had come to respect Minato, not just for his strength, but for his kindness and the wisdom he carried despite his young age. But recently, Fubuki had begun to notice the small, unspoken things. The way Minato's eyes lingered on her when she made a particularly good move during training. The way his voice softened when he spoke to her, offering comfort and encouragement. And the moments when their fingers would brush, just for a second, before they both quickly pulled away as if it had never happened. Fubuki had never been one to shy away from her feelings, but in this world, with Minato, she felt out of her depth. She had responsibilities here now, and the growing bond between them complicated everything. Could she allow herself to love someone here, when she still longed to return to her world? One evening, after a particularly intense training session, Fubuki sat alone on a hill overlooking the village. The sunset painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, and the cool breeze ruffled her hair. She closed her eyes and let the quiet of the moment wash over her, but the quiet only amplified her thoughts. What am I doing here? She murmured to herself, her voice barely audible in the evening air. I have a life back home. I can't forget that. But then her thoughts turned to Minato. His face, always calm but so full of determination, flashed in her mind. Her heart clenched. She had never imagined falling for someone like him. But the truth was undeniable. There was something about him that called to her. Before she could sink deeper into her thoughts, she heard the familiar sound of footsteps approaching. Fubuki looked up to see Minato walking toward her, his usual confident but thoughtful expression on his face. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, his voice gentle. Fubuki gave him a small smile. "Of course not." Minato sat beside her, his gaze fixed on the horizon as they both watched the sun slowly dip behind the trees. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable, but it felt heavy, like there was something unsaid hanging in the air. "You've been quieter than usual," Minato remarked after a moment. "Everything all right?" Fubuki sighed, unsure of how to put her feelings into words. "It's just hard sometimes," she said softly, not meeting his gaze. "Being here, I mean. I'm still not used to it." Minato nodded in understanding. "I can imagine it's difficult. But you've been doing great. You've made a real impact here. The village is better because of you." Fubuki looked at him, her eyes softening. I keep thinking about my old world. The people I left behind. The life I was supposed to have." Minato's gaze softened as well, a quiet empathy in his eyes. "I can't imagine what it must be like to have your entire world pulled away like that." Fubuki bit her lip, feeling a mix of emotions rise within her. She wanted to return to her world, to the life she knew. But at the same time, the bonds she was forming in Konoha were starting to mean something more than just a temporary refuge. "I'm not sure what I'm supposed to feel anymore," she admitted. "I'm still trying to figure out who I am in this world." Minato turned to face her, his voice low and sincere. "You don't have to figure it out alone. We're all here for you." Fubuki looked into his eyes, and for a moment, everything else faded away. The weight of her past, her longing to return, all of it seemed distant. In that moment, there was only Minato. Only the quiet understanding that seemed to flow between them, the unspoken bond that was slowly growing. The next few days were filled with more of the same, training, missions, and a sense of quiet camaraderie that seemed to hang between her and Minato. But despite the moments of connection, neither of them could bring themselves to acknowledge the shift in their relationship. One evening, they found themselves alone together again. Minato had just returned from a meeting with the village council, his face tired but resolute. He had been working non-stop lately, but Fubuki could see the quiet toll it was taking on him. "You're working too hard," Fubuki said, stepping into his path as he walked down the hall of the Hokage's mansion. "You need to rest." Minato smiled, but it was faint. "I can't afford to rest. There's too much to do." Fubuki reached out, placing a hand gently on his arm. "You don't have to carry all the weight alone, Minato. We're all in this together." Minato looked down at her hand, his expression unreadable for a moment. Then, slowly, he met her gaze, his eyes filled with something Fubuki couldn't quite place. It wasn't just exhaustion. It was something deeper, something that mirrored the feelings she had been trying to ignore. "I know," he said quietly. "But sometimes, it's hard to let others help." Fubuki's heart skipped a beat. The air between them seemed to shift, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. It was as if they were both waiting for the other to take the first step. But neither of them did. Fubuki withdrew her hand, a small frown tugging at her lips. "You should rest," she said again. Her voice tinged with something she couldn't fully identify. "I'll be here if you need anything." Minato nodded, but there was a lingering tension in the air. "Thank you, Fubuki." As he walked away, Fubuki's gaze lingered on his back, a deep ache in her chest. She had come to care for him more than she was willing to admit. But was it right to let herself feel that way? Was it fair to build something here, when she might never truly belong? The unspoken feelings between them hung heavy in the air, unresolved and waiting for the right moment. But neither of them knew when that moment would come, or if it ever would. The following days passed in a quiet tension. Fubuki's relationship with Minato continued to grow, but neither of them could find the words to bridge the gap between friendship and something deeper. And in the back of her mind, Fubuki still couldn't shake the feeling that she was living someone else's life. The longing to return to her world was always there, lurking just beneath the surface. But with each passing day, with each moment spent with Minato, Fubuki couldn't help but wonder if she was starting to belong here more than she ever thought possible. And that thought, more than anything, scared her. End of Chapter 3. Chapter 4, Bonds Forged in Fire. It was a quiet morning in Konoha, the sun rising over the village and casting a warm glow on the streets. Fubuki sat at the edge of the Hokage's mansion, overlooking the village below. Her mind was still unsettled, caught between her desire to return to her world and the undeniable feelings she had started to develop for Minato. It had been weeks since she had arrived in Konoha, and while the village had become more familiar, her longing for home never wavered. Her thoughts were interrupted when a sharp cry broke through the air. Attack! Incoming enemy forces! Fubuki stood immediately, her heart racing. The peaceful routine she had grown accustomed to was about to be shattered. She turned toward the sound of the voice, spotting Minato as he rushed toward the village gates, his face set with determination. Minato, she called out, running to meet him. What's happening? We're under attack, Minato said, his expression grim. A large group of rogue ninjas have breached the village's defenses. They're aiming for the village center. Fubuki's body tensed at the seriousness of the situation. What do you need me to do? I need you to help defend the village. You're one of the strongest fighters we have now, Fubuki. Can I count on you? Minato's voice was steady, but there was a hint of something else in his eyes, an unspoken trust in her ability. Without hesitation, Fubuki nodded. You can always count on me, Minato. The battle at the village gates was nothing like Fubuki had ever experienced. The rogue ninjas were well organized, their strength formidable. The air was thick with tension as jutsu clashed and ninja moved with deadly precision. Fubuki's heart pounded in her chest as she fought, her movements fluid and precise, honed through years of battle. But this wasn't just any fight. This was a fight to protect the very people she had come to care for. Her connection to Konoha, however complicated, was starting to feel real. She was no longer just a stranger in an unknown land. She was part of this world now, her presence mattered. Minato fought alongside her, his chakra-infused speed cutting through enemies with the same grace and power that had earned him the title of Hokage. He was a natural leader, guiding the troops with the calmness that came from knowing exactly what to do in a crisis. Fubuki marveled at how effortlessly he led the defense, but there was something else she noticed too, a certain closeness between them as they worked together, their moves coordinated as if they had been fighting side by side for years. You're doing great, Minato said as they dispatched another wave of attackers, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. Fubuki glanced at him, her breath coming in sharp bursts. Same to you, Hokage-sama. The battle raged on, each minute stretching into what felt like an eternity. The rogue ninjas were relentless. But Fubuki and Minato's bond was undeniable. Every time she was surrounded, Minato was there to protect her, and every time he needed support, Fubuki was right there, her attacks precise and deadly. At one point, Fubuki found herself cornered by a group of rogue ninjas, their chakra-infused weapons aimed at her. She fought back fiercely, but the numbers were overwhelming. Just as one of them lunged at her with a deadly strike, she felt a surge of chakra from behind. Minato appeared in a flash of light, his kunai slicing through the enemy ranks. He moved with a speed that left the attackers no time to react. Get back, Minato ordered, his voice fierce as he protected her with a barrier of chakra. We'll finish this together. Fubuki stood by his side, her body humming with the power of the battle. They were an unstoppable force, together. Every movement they made was fluid, synchronized, as though they were reading each other's thoughts. When the last of the rogue ninjas were defeated, the village finally fell into a tentative silence. The damage was done, but the villagers were safe. Minato, panting from exertion, stood next to Fubuki, his eyes meeting hers. That was something, Fubuki said, trying to catch her breath, her eyes still scanning the battlefield. Minato's eyes softened as he looked at her, a deep gratitude in his gaze. "You were incredible, Fubuki. I knew I could count on you." Fubuki didn't know what to say. She had always prided herself on her strength and independence, but there was something about fighting alongside Minato that made her feel different. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she wasn't alone. Later, when the village began to recover from the attack, Fubuki and Minato found themselves alone in the Hokage's office, both of them exhausted from the battle. The tension from earlier had not yet dissipated, and the weight of the unspoken words hung between them. Minato sat at his desk, going over reports, but his focus seemed distant. Fubuki stood by the window, gazing out at the village below. She had grown to care about Konoha, about these people. But there was still something she hadn't been able to shake, the longing to return to her own world. Fubuki closed her eyes, sighing. "Minato, You don't have to go back," Minato interrupted, his voice soft but firm. He stood and walked over to her, his footsteps slow and deliberate. "You've become a part of this village. A part of my life." Fubuki's heart skipped a beat. She turned to face him, her breath caught in her throat. "Minato. I know you've been struggling," Minato said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You've been torn between the world you came from and this one. But I want you to know that I don't want you to leave." Fubuki swallowed hard, her mind racing. She had always been independent, had always lived for the moment, never truly allowing herself to form attachments. But Minato was different. He made her feel safe. Seen. "I don't know what's right anymore," Fubuki admitted, her voice shaking slightly. "I miss my world. But I've come to care for this one. And I've come to care for you." Minato's eyes softened, a warmth filling them. "I feel the same way, Fubuki. I don't want to push you, but I need you to know that you don't have to make this decision alone. I'm here. We're in this together." There was a long pause, a moment where Fubuki could only hear the beating of her own heart. Then, slowly, she took a step toward him, her hand reaching for his. She felt the warmth of his touch as their fingers brushed. "I don't want to go back anymore," she said, her voice steady, though her heart was racing. "Not if it means leaving you behind." Minato's face broke into a smile, his eyes shining with something Fubuki hadn't seen before, vulnerability, hope, and something deeper. "Then stay with me," he said softly, his voice filled with sincerity. "Stay with me, Fubuki. I want you by my side." Without another word, Fubuki closed the distance between them, her lips meeting his in a kiss that was gentle at first but quickly deepened as emotions they had both been holding back finally found release. It was a kiss of relief, of connection, of a new beginning. When they finally pulled away, Minato rested his forehead against hers. "We'll face whatever comes together," he whispered. Fubuki smiled, her heart finally at peace. "Together," she echoed. In that moment, she realized that her place was no longer in her old world. It was here, in this new world, with Minato. And whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. End of Chapter 4. Chapter 5, A New Life. Life in Konoha seemed to settle into a rhythm after the battle. Fubuki's bond with Minato had grown stronger, and their shared experiences had brought them closer than ever before. The days passed in peaceful routines, but an undercurrent of change stirred quietly in Fubuki's heart. She had finally made her peace with staying in this world. Her life here, with Minato and the village, was becoming a reality she could no longer ignore. But one morning, as she awoke to the gentle sounds of the village, something in her body felt different. A lingering fatigue that had been building up over the past few weeks had reached its peak, and Fubuki couldn't shake the odd feeling of nausea that kept coming and going. She had spent enough time in this world to understand her own body well enough to recognize the signs. Her heart skipped a beat as the realization hit her: she was pregnant. Minato had been busy in the Hokage's office, as always, sorting through reports and attending to the responsibilities of running the village. Fubuki had always respected his dedication to the village, but today, she needed to talk to him. She needed to tell him everything. She stood in the doorway of his office, her hand resting on her stomach, her mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. Minato looked up from his desk, his expression softening when he saw her. "Fubuki, what is it? You look different." She took a deep breath, feeling her nerves rise. "Minato, there's something I need to tell you." He stood, walking toward her, his face a mix of concern and curiosity. "What's wrong?" Fubuki glanced down, her hand still resting on her stomach. "Minato. I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air between them, and for a moment, there was silence. Minato's eyes widened, and Fubuki could see the shock and surprise written clearly on his face. He took a step closer, reaching out to gently touch her arm. "Are you sure?" Minato asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Fubuki nodded, a faint smile tugging at her lips, though her eyes were filled with uncertainty. "I'm sure." Minato's gaze softened, and for a moment, he was speechless. The reality of the situation was sinking in, and he knew this was not something that could be ignored or dismissed. Fubuki's presence in his life had already changed everything, and now, this new life they had created together would change it even more. "I don't know what to say," Minato admitted, his voice filled with emotion. "I'm happy, but I'm also worried. This world, it's dangerous. We can't escape that." Fubuki looked at him, her heart aching. She had known this would be a challenge, but hearing the words from Minato's mouth made it all the more real. The world they lived in was full of danger, and now, they would be responsible for a child. "I'm scared, Minato," Fubuki confessed, her voice shaky. "I've fought battles and faced death, but this is different. I can't bear the thought of something happening to our child." Minato's hand gently cupped her cheek, his eyes filled with resolve. "I understand your fear, Fubuki. I feel it too. But I swear to you, I will protect you both. No matter what happens, I will do everything in my power to keep you safe. You have my word." Fubuki felt a tear slip down her cheek, but it wasn't from sadness. It was from the overwhelming sense of relief that washed over her as she looked into Minato's eyes. His promise, his unwavering determination, reassured her more than anything else. "You don't have to face this alone," Minato continued, his voice full of conviction. "We're in this together. Our family will be safe, Fubuki. I'll make sure of it." Fubuki nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude. She had never been one to rely on others, but Minato's words made her realize that, for the first time, it was okay to let someone else take the weight. She wasn't alone. The next few weeks passed in a blur as the news of Fubuki's pregnancy spread through Konoha. It wasn't long before she began to notice changes in her body. She was more tired than usual, and the village's peaceful atmosphere offered her a sense of calm. Still, she couldn't ignore the growing fear she had for their unborn child. Despite Minato's reassurances, Fubuki knew that the world they lived in was far from peaceful. There were threats everywhere, from rogue ninjas to political tensions that simmered beneath the surface. Konoha's enemies would not stop just because they had a child on the way. But Minato was resolute. He was determined to make sure that nothing would harm her or their child. He took extra care in the security of the village, working tirelessly to ensure that the walls surrounding Konoha were impenetrable. But Fubuki saw the toll it took on him. The stress of balancing his role as Hokage with the responsibility of their growing family weighed heavily on him. One night, after another long day of work, Minato returned home to find Fubuki sitting on the balcony, looking out over the village. Her profile was bathed in the soft light of the moon, and for a moment, Minato simply watched her, his heart full of love and concern. He walked up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "You're up late," he said softly. Fubuki leaned back into him, resting her head against his chest. "I was just thinking." "About the baby?" She nodded. "And about our future." Minato kissed the top of her head. "I've been thinking about it too. No matter what happens, we'll build a life here. Together. This world may be dangerous, but we'll make sure our family is safe. Fubuki closed her eyes, feeling the weight of his words settle in her heart. There was still uncertainty about what the future held, but for the first time since learning of her pregnancy, she felt a sense of peace. With Minato by her side, she knew they could face whatever came their way. The months that followed were filled with preparation. The village rallied around them, offering support as Fubuki's pregnancy progressed. People were excited about the arrival of the Hokage's child, and the bond between Minato and Fubuki grew even stronger as they made plans for their new life as parents. But even with the preparations, the world outside Konoha never stopped being a threat. Minato continued to work tirelessly, and Fubuki, though grateful for his protection, knew that they could not always control the future. The reality of their situation remained at the forefront of her mind, but for the first time in a long while, she had hope, a hope that, no matter the dangers, their family would thrive in this world. And as Minato held her close, promising to protect them both, Fubuki realized that, for the first time in her life, she had found something worth fighting for, not just her own survival, but the future they would build together. End of Chapter 5. Chapter 6, Preparing for Parenthood. The days in Konoha passed slowly, each one bringing Fubuki closer to the inevitable moment that would change her life forever. As the months wore on, her body changed, and with it, the overwhelming realization of what it meant to be pregnant in this strange new world. The child she carried was a symbol of her life here, tangled in both the warmth of love she had found and the lingering sorrow of what she had left behind. Fubuki had begun to grow more comfortable with the idea of raising a child in Konoha. The village was peaceful, at least on the surface, and the people had embraced her despite her origins. But beneath that surface, there was a truth she couldn't escape: the world was still full of danger. Her child would inherit not just her strength, but the threats of a ninja world that never slept. The idea of raising a child in a place where violence and power were common was both terrifying and comforting. She and Minato spent many nights preparing for the baby. They had everything they needed: furniture, clothes, supplies, but no amount of preparation could ease the weight of their concerns. Fubuki had never envisioned herself as a mother, and while Minato was confident in his ability to provide for their family, Fubuki's uncertainty lingered. The fear of losing something so precious weighed heavily on her heart. One evening, as the sun set over the village, Minato found Fubuki sitting alone on their balcony, staring out at the quiet streets below. Her hands rested on her stomach, her expression pensive. "Hey," Minato called softly as he stepped out onto the balcony. "You okay?" Fubuki turned to him, her eyes soft, but filled with a mix of emotions. "I'm just thinking, Minato." He walked over to her, sitting beside her. He took her hand in his touch gentle, but firm. "About the baby?" "Yeah," Fubuki said quietly. "I keep wondering if I'm ready. If we're ready. This world, it's so different from mine. I don't know what kind of world I'm bringing our child into." Minato's heart ached at the vulnerability in her voice. He gently squeezed her hand. "It's a dangerous world, Fubuki. But we'll face it together. I've seen the way you protect those you care about, and I know you'll be an incredible mother." Fubuki looked down, her fingers tracing the edges of his hand. "But what if something happens? What if we can't protect them?" Minato's voice softened as he spoke, the weight of his promise clear in his words. "I will protect you both. No matter what. You have my word." She met his gaze, and for the first time in months, the fear in her chest eased, just slightly. There was something comforting in the certainty of his words, in the unwavering conviction that, together, they would face whatever came their way. As the weeks passed, Fubuki's pregnancy progressed, and so did her relationship with Minato. The couple spent more time together, not just planning for the baby, but also strengthening the bond they had already built. They would walk through the village, hand in hand, as they discussed the future and the changes that were coming. One afternoon, Minato took Fubuki to a quiet part of the village, where a large, blooming tree stood. The petals fell gently from the branches, carried by the wind. This tree, Minato explained, is a symbol of new beginnings in Konoha. Every year, it blooms again, no matter what happens. It reminds us that even in the darkest times, new life can grow. Fubuki gazed at the tree, the soft petals drifting through the air. She could feel the weight of the metaphor, the promise of new life, the hope that this child, their child, would represent something more than just the challenges they faced. It would be a beacon for their future. I want our child to grow up here, Fubuki said, her voice steady. In a place where they'll have the opportunity to live, not just survive. Minato smiled softly, pulling her closer. I want that too. We'll give them that chance, Fubuki. I'll make sure of it. The days became weeks, and as Fubuki neared the final stretch of her pregnancy, the anticipation grew. The villagers, too, were excited. Whispers of the Hokage's child filled the streets, and even the older shinobi in the village couldn't hide their enthusiasm. Fubuki could feel the warmth of their support, and it made her feel more at home than she ever had before. But even with the village's support, Fubuki couldn't shake the fear. The world was dangerous, and her child was about to be brought into it. What would they be like? Would they inherit her strength, her warrior spirit? Or would they be a beacon of hope for something better? The uncertainty weighed on her, but she knew, deep down, that she had to trust in the love they had created and the life they had built together. One night, as Fubuki sat in bed, feeling the familiar, rhythmic kicks of her child, Minato sat beside her, his hand resting on her stomach. They hadn't said much in the last few moments, but the silence felt comforting. Minato leaned down, his lips brushing against her forehead. We're ready for this, Fubuki. We've faced so much already. This will be the beginning of something beautiful. Fubuki closed her eyes, resting her head against his shoulder. I hope so, she whispered, her voice filled with both hope and fear. I hope so. The night Fubuki went into labor, it was as though the entire village held its breath. Minato was by her side every step of the way, his presence a constant source of strength for her. The pain was intense, but Fubuki didn't feel alone. Minato was there, holding her hand, whispering words of encouragement, promising her that everything would be all right. When the time finally came, with a cry that seemed to echo throughout the room, their son was born. Minato held him in his arms, his eyes shining with joy and awe as he looked at the tiny, perfect face before him. Fubuki's heart swelled as she gazed at their son, her body exhausted but her heart full. He's beautiful, Fubuki whispered, tears filling her eyes. Minato smiled, his voice thick with emotion. He's ours. Our new beginning. Fubuki looked at their son, with a sense of peace she hadn't known she was capable of. The uncertainty that had once gripped her now seemed small in comparison to the love she felt for this tiny life in her arms. Their child was the future, the hope they had worked so hard to build. In the days that followed, as Fubuki and Minato settled into their new roles as parents, life in Konoha took on a new meaning. The child they had brought into the world would grow up in a place filled with love, and despite the dangers that still loomed on the horizon, Fubuki was no longer afraid. With Minato by her side, she knew they would face whatever came next, together. And for the first time since arriving in this world, Fubuki knew that her place was here. With Minato, with their child, in the Hidden Leaf Village. End of Chapter 6. Chapter 7, The Arrival of Naruto. The moment Naruto was born, everything around Fubuki seemed to stop. The pain of childbirth, the fear and uncertainty, all faded into nothing as she held her son for the first time. His small, fragile form rested in her arms, and despite the exhaustion in her body, a deep warmth spread through her chest. This was it, the beginning of something new, something she hadn't expected but now couldn't imagine living without. Minato stood beside her, his face beaming with pride as he gazed down at their son. His hand gently stroked Naruto's tiny head, his expression a mixture of awe and pure joy. He's perfect, Minato whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Fubuki could only nod, tears brimming in her eyes. He is, she agreed softly. Our son. They both marveled at the tiny life they had created together, but even in that moment of bliss, Fubuki couldn't ignore the pangs of sorrow that lingered in her heart. She had been ripped from her world, from everything she knew, and despite the love she felt for Minato and their child, there was still a part of her that longed to return home. She couldn't escape the thought that this world, despite its beauty and peace, wasn't hers. As she gazed down at Naruto, she wondered if he would ever understand the sacrifice they had made, bringing him into this world. Would he ever know what she had left behind? Would he ever feel the same ache in his heart for a world he would never know? In the days that followed, life in Konoha changed in a way Fubuki hadn't anticipated. Minato's devotion to their family grew deeper with each passing hour. He spent every moment he could at her side, helping care for Naruto, offering support in ways Fubuki had never imagined. The love between them had always been strong, but now, with the arrival of their son, it was something even more profound, something she had never experienced before. Minato was a natural father. He gently rocked Naruto to sleep when Fubuki was too tired, spoke to him in a voice full of hope and love, and took every opportunity to teach him, even at such a young age. Fubuki watched him with admiration, seeing how deeply he cared for their child. She, too, grew into her new role. The initial fear of motherhood, of not knowing what to do, of not being enough, gradually faded as she held Naruto in her arms. She had always been a fighter, a leader, but now she had a new kind of strength. The strength of a mother. She fed him, soothed him, and spent hours gazing at him, marveling at the miracle they had created. But even as she embraced this new life, she couldn't fully silence the ache of longing that still gnawed at her heart. One evening, as Minato sat by the fireplace, gently rocking Naruto to sleep, Fubuki stepped outside to the balcony. The cool night air brushed against her skin, and she closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. The village was quiet, peaceful, and the stars above shone brightly in the sky. But beneath the peace, a sense of loss lingered. The world she had left behind was still there, far away, and despite her growing love for Konoha, she couldn't ignore the pull of her old life. The memories of her past, of the battles she had fought and the people she had known, still haunted her in the quiet moments when she allowed herself to remember. Fubuki? Minato's voice broke through her thoughts, and she turned to see him standing in the doorway, holding their son in his arms. His eyes softened as he approached her, the love and warmth in his gaze more than she could ever fully express in words. "Is everything okay?" he asked, his voice gentle, as if sensing the melancholy in her. Fubuki smiled weakly, her heart heavy. "I'm fine, Minato. Just thinking." Minato stepped closer, holding Naruto close to his chest. "About the past?" he asked, his voice quiet but understanding. She nodded slowly, feeling the sting of the unspoken truth. "Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever be able to forget it all, the world I came from. The life I had. And now, I'm here, in this new world, with you and Naruto." She paused, her gaze drifting to the baby in Minato's arms. "I love him. I love both of you. But there's still a part of me that doesn't feel like I fully belong here." Minato's expression softened, and he walked closer to her, gently placing his hand on her shoulder. "You belong here, Fubuki. You belong with me. You belong with Naruto. This world may not be your old world, but that doesn't mean it can't be your new home." Fubuki closed her eyes, letting his words wash over her. "But what if I can never let go of the past?" she whispered. "What if that part of me is always going to be missing?" Minato gently guided her to sit beside him, still holding Naruto in his arms. "You don't have to forget your past, Fubuki. It's a part of who you are, and it always will be. But you also have a future here. With me. With Naruto." Fubuki looked at him, her heart swelling with emotion. "I don't know what I would have done without you, Minato. You and Naruto, you're my family now." Minato smiled, his eyes warm and filled with love. "And you're ours, Fubuki. You've already given us everything. Your heart, your strength, your love. That's more than enough." Fubuki reached out, gently touching Naruto's tiny hand, feeling the warmth of his small fingers curl around hers. For the first time since her arrival, she realized that she didn't need to choose between the life she had left behind and the one she had found here. Both parts of her were real, both parts of her mattered. But what she had with Minato and Naruto, this family, was something she had never imagined, and something she would fight for with everything she had. In the days that followed, the weight of her decision began to feel lighter. Fubuki slowly embraced her role as a mother, as Minato's partner, and as a member of the Hidden Leaf Village. She didn't forget her past, she couldn't, but she began to understand that her future was just as important. She was part of something new now, something that was built on love, trust, and the hope of a brighter tomorrow for Naruto. And when she looked at Minato, holding their son in his arms, Fubuki knew that this was where she was meant to be. In this world, with her family. She had found her place, and she would fight to protect it. End of Chapter 7. Chapter 8, Love and Conflict. The days seemed to blur together as the seasons shifted in Konoha. Naruto had grown quickly, his bright blue eyes filled with curiosity and wonder as he explored the world around him. His laughter echoed through the village. A sound that filled Fubuki's heart with warmth. Despite the chaotic nature of the world, the simple joys of watching her son grow had become a balm for her soul. But as Naruto's powers began to develop, so did the challenges that came with them. Fubuki had always known her son was special, but as he approached the age of 4, his abilities began to manifest in strange and powerful ways. One evening, after a particularly intense training session with Minato, Fubuki sat on the porch, watching as Naruto played with his toy kunai in the yard. His energy seemed boundless, and Fubuki couldn't help but worry. It wasn't just his energy, there was something more. Something different. Minato stepped outside beside her, his expression thoughtful as he watched their son. He's getting stronger every day. Fubuki sighed softly. I know. It's just, he's so young. And I can see the power in him. I'm worried about what he might have to face. Minato sat down beside her, his gaze softening as he took her hand. I understand, Fubuki. But he's strong, just like you. And we'll be here to guide him. Fubuki looked down at their intertwined hands, feeling a weight in her chest. I never wanted this for him. I never wanted him to be a warrior, to be caught up in the world of ninjas. But now, I can't protect him from everything. Minato's voice was steady and firm as he responded, you won't have to. We'll protect him together. You've already given him the greatest gift, your love, your strength. He'll grow up knowing that he's not alone in this world, that he has a family who will always stand by him. Fubuki swallowed hard, her emotions a turbulent storm inside her. But what about me, Minato? What about the world I left behind? Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever feel like I belong here. I love you. I love Naruto. But there's still this ache, this longing for something I can never have again. Minato turned toward her, his expression softening with understanding. Fubuki, I know it's not easy. But you found a home here. A family. This world might not be your old world, but it's where you belong now. And I'm here with you. You're not alone. Fubuki closed her eyes, leaning into him. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that the life she had now was enough. But the memories of her past world, the life she had left behind, still haunted her, especially when she looked at Naruto. The child she had brought into this world, who would face challenges she couldn't shield him from. As the months passed, Naruto's abilities only became more apparent. He was strong, faster than other children his age, and his chakra control was extraordinary. But with every new skill came a new challenge. It wasn't just about physical strength, it was the way his energy felt so powerful, so overwhelming. One day, while Fubuki and Minato were training in the yard, Naruto's chakra flared unexpectedly. The ground around him cracked and the air seemed to thicken as his small hands clenched into fists. Fubuki felt a surge of alarm as the energy radiated from him. Naruto, calm down. Minato called, stepping forward, his voice firm but gentle. Naruto's face was twisted in concentration as the chakra continued to pulse around him. His eyes were wide with confusion, and it was clear he didn't fully understand the power he was wielding. Fubuki rushed to his side, kneeling down and placing a hand on his shoulder. "Naruto, listen to me," she said, her voice calm but insistent. "You need to focus. Take a deep breath." Naruto's energy wavered, the chakra slowly subsiding as he blinked up at her, wide-eyed. "I didn't mean to do that, Mom," he whispered, his voice filled with uncertainty. Fubuki smiled gently, brushing his hair out of his eyes. "I know, sweetheart. You're just learning. But you have to be careful. Your power is special, and you have to learn to control it." Minato joined them, his gaze serious, but filled with reassurance. "We'll help you, Naruto. Together, we'll teach you how to control your chakra. You're not alone in this." Fubuki watched her husband and son, her heart swelling with love and pride. But a part of her still ached. Naruto was growing up in a world where power was everything. Where enemies lurked around every corner, and she couldn't shield him from it. She had fought her whole life, and now her son would have to fight too. Would he be prepared? Would he understand the dangers of his power? That night, as they lay in bed, Fubuki couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, lost in her thoughts. Minato lay beside her, his hand resting on her shoulder, sensing her unrest. "Fubuki," he said quietly, his voice soft in the darkness. "You're still thinking about Naruto's power, aren't you?" She nodded, her throat tight. "I can see how strong he is. But I'm scared, Minato. What if he's too powerful for his own good? What if he's caught up in a battle he can't win?" Minato's voice was calm, unwavering. "He's strong, Fubuki. But he's also smart. And he has us. We'll help him understand his strength, just like we've helped him with everything else. We won't let him walk this path alone." Fubuki closed her eyes, trying to find comfort in his words. She had to believe him. She had to believe that, together, they could help Naruto navigate the dangers of this world. The next few days brought more challenges. Naruto's powers continued to grow, and with them, the responsibility of raising him became more complex. Fubuki could see the weight of it all pressing down on Minato as well. He was the Hokage, the protector of Konoha, but now he was also a father, trying to balance his duties with the responsibilities of raising a child who was becoming something greater than either of them had imagined. One afternoon, after another round of training, Minato and Fubuki sat on the porch, watching Naruto run through the yard, his small form darting across the grass with incredible speed. "I can't help but worry," Fubuki said, her voice soft. "He's so much like you, so full of potential. But I'm scared, Minato. What if he faces something we can't protect him from?" Minato looked at her, his eyes filled with a deep, quiet understanding. "We'll do everything we can to protect him, Fubuki. But we can't shelter him from the world. We can only teach him how to survive in it. And if he ever falls, we'll be there to catch him." Fubuki nodded, though her heart still felt heavy. She had always been strong, always relied on herself. But this, raising Naruto, being his mother, it was different. She had a new purpose now, one that was more precious than anything she had ever known. She just hoped it would be enough. As Naruto continued to grow and develop his powers, Fubuki and Minato's love for him only deepened. Yet, despite the strength they found in each other and their growing family, there were still moments of doubt, moments when Fubuki couldn't escape the longing for the life she had left behind. Her past world, her former life, would always be a part of her, and no matter how much she loved Minato and Naruto, she knew there would always be a part of her that wondered, what if? But as she looked at Minato, and as she watched their son play in the yard, Fubuki understood something deep within herself. No matter what happened, this, her family, this world, this life, was her home now. And she would fight to protect it, just as fiercely as she had fought for everything else in her life. End of Chapter 8. Chapter 9, Training the Air. The soft morning light filtered through the trees of Konoha, casting long shadows on the training grounds. Fubuki stood at the edge of the field, her eyes focused on Naruto, who was practicing with a set of wooden kunai. His small form darted across the ground, faster than most children his age, his movements fluid and precise. Minato watched from beside her, his gaze filled with quiet pride. "He's growing up quickly," Fubuki said, her voice soft but filled with both awe and concern. "I can hardly keep up with him anymore." Minato smiled, the warmth in his eyes unmistakable. "He's inherited a lot from both of us, his energy, his drive. He's special, Fubuki." Fubuki nodded, though a small knot of worry tightened in her chest. "I know. But I can't help but wonder if we're preparing him for a world he's not ready for." Minato's expression softened. He reached out, resting his hand on her shoulder. "We'll make sure he's ready. It's our responsibility to train him, to guide him. And we'll do it together." Fubuki looked at Minato, her heart swelling with love for both him and their son. They had already faced so much together, and now, training Naruto seemed like the next step in their shared journey. But as proud as she was of her son, the thought of him facing the dangers of the world still filled her with a sense of dread. Naruto's training had begun in earnest. Fubuki, with her vast experience in combat, focused on teaching him the practical skills that would ensure he could protect himself. Her lessons were rigorous, she was a tough teacher, pushing him to his limits with each sparring match. Minato, on the other hand, focused on Naruto's chakra control and leadership, teaching him to harness the power within him, to guide it instead of letting it control him. Every day, they spent hours working with their son, helping him grow stronger both mentally and physically. Fubuki sessions often began with a series of combat drills, basic stances, quick strikes, and reflex training. She taught him to read his opponent's movements, to anticipate attacks before they came. She was strict, demanding excellence in every move. It wasn't easy, but Naruto showed promise, his natural agility and innate strength made him an impressive student. "Remember," Fubuki instructed as she stood across from him, "focus on your opponent's weaknesses, not just your own strength. Fighting isn't just about hitting harder, it's about being smarter." Naruto nodded, his small face focused as he adjusted his stance. He lunged forward, his movements quick, but Fubuki easily blocked his strike, sidestepping with ease. "Again," she said firmly. Naruto grinned, determined. "I won't lose this time, Mom." Fubuki smiled, her heart swelling with pride, but also with a sense of unease. She could see the potential in him, the natural talent, the speed, but there was also something unsettling about how quickly he picked up on the techniques. As much as she wanted to push him, to prepare him for the inevitable challenges ahead, she feared that in doing so, she was pushing him too hard. In the evenings, Minato worked with Naruto on chakra control. He taught him how to feel the energy within his body, how to direct it into the right channels, how to focus his chakra to perform jutsu. "Focus, Naruto," Minato said as he stood in front of him, his hand glowing with a soft, pulsing light. "The chakra is inside you. You just need to guide it with your mind, not force it with your will." Naruto concentrated, his brow furrowed in concentration as he attempted to manifest his chakra. For a moment, nothing happened. But then, a flicker of light appeared in his palm, followed by a surge of energy that crackled in the air. Minato grinned, pride evident in his voice. "That's it. Keep focusing, just like that." Naruto's eyes lit up with excitement. "I did it. Look, Dad." Fubuki, standing just a few feet away, watched their interaction with a mixture of pride and concern. She had always been fiercely independent, believing in strength through hard work and discipline. But Minato's approach, gentle, patient, was beginning to bear fruit in a way that made her question if she was too harsh on Naruto. Perhaps, like Minato, she could find a balance between strength and support. The weeks passed, and Naruto's abilities continued to grow. He mastered basic jutsu quickly, even performing advanced techniques with surprising ease. Minato was impressed by his progress, but Fubuki couldn't shake the feeling that their son was growing too quickly, both in strength and in responsibility. One afternoon, after a particularly intense training session, Fubuki sat with Naruto under the shade of a tree, her hand resting on his shoulder as he caught his breath. Mom, I can do it. I'm ready for anything, Naruto said, his voice filled with excitement and determination. Fubuki looked at him, her heart torn between pride and fear. He was so eager, so ready to take on the world, but she knew the dangers that awaited him. She had lived through them herself, fought wars, faced betrayal, and lost comrades. She didn't want Naruto to experience that same pain. Listen to me, Naruto, Fubuki said, her voice firm yet gentle. It's not just about being ready. It's about knowing when to fight and when to hold back. You may be strong, but your strength alone won't protect you from everything. Naruto met her gaze, his blue eyes filled with understanding, though the fire of determination still burned in them. I'll be careful, Mom. I promise. Fubuki smiled, but the worry in her chest didn't subside. She could see it in his eyes, the same hunger for greatness that had driven her all those years ago. She wanted him to have the world, but she also knew how dangerous that hunger could be. As the months went on, Fubuki and Minato's training for Naruto continued. The village watched as the young boy's abilities grew, and whispers of his potential spread throughout Konoha. He was becoming known as a prodigy, a child of incredible promise. But despite the pride she felt for him, Fubuki's fears grew stronger. Minato saw it, too, and there were moments when he would glance at Fubuki, concern flickering in his eyes. He knew how hard she had fought to protect the ones she loved. And now, it seemed, she was fighting an even harder battle, the battle between letting Naruto grow into his own person and protecting him from the dangers of the world. One evening, as Fubuki and Minato watched Naruto train with the other young ninjas, Minato turned to Fubuki, his voice quiet. He's ready, Fubuki. I think we've given him the tools he needs. But now, we need to trust him. Fubuki nodded slowly, her hand resting on her stomach. She could feel the weight of her decision pressing down on her, but deep down, she knew Minato was right. It was time to trust Naruto. He was no longer a child. He was becoming something greater. Let's trust him, she whispered, her voice filled with both pride and uncertainty. We've done our best. Now, it's his turn. As the moon rose over the village, casting a silver glow over the training grounds, Fubuki watched her son, his movements sharp and focused. She didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain, Naruto was ready to face it. And, no matter what, she would be there by his side, guiding him through the challenges ahead. End of Chapter 9. Chapter 10, The Past Returns. The village of Konoha had settled into a rare moment of peace. The sun was setting over the horizon, casting a golden hue across the trees and rooftops. It was a peaceful evening, with children playing in the streets and the village's inhabitants going about their usual business. Fubuki sat outside the Hokage's mansion, watching the sunset with a soft smile, her hand resting on her stomach. Her life had changed so much since she had arrived in this world. Her bond with Minato had grown deeper, and their family was flourishing. But even in moments like this, when everything felt so right, a part of her still longed for the world she had left behind. The life she had once known. Fubuki, are you all right? Minato's voice broke through her thoughts, and she turned to find him standing in the doorway, his face gentle, but filled with concern. I'm fine, Fubuki replied with a small smile. Just thinking. Minato raised an eyebrow, walking over and sitting beside her. About the past again? Fubuki nodded. It's hard to let go, Minato. Some nights, I feel like I'm living in two worlds at once. I have this life here, with you and Naruto, and it's everything I've ever wanted. But then I remember my old world, the people, the battles, and I wonder if I've truly left it behind. Minato placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. You don't have to forget your past, Fubuki. But you don't have to carry its weight alone anymore. We're here with you. Just as Fubuki opened her mouth to reply, a sudden surge of chakra disrupted the air. It was unlike anything she had felt before, dark, oppressive, and unnervingly familiar. Her heart raced as the hairs on the back of her neck stood up. Minato stood up immediately, his eyes narrowing. What is that? Fubuki's face paled as she stood, instinctively reaching for the kunai at her side. It's him. Someone from my world is here. Before Minato could ask any more questions, a figure appeared at the edge of the village, cloaked in shadows, radiating the same menacing chakra Fubuki had felt earlier. He stepped forward, his features obscured by the darkness of his cloak, but Fubuki could feel his presence, the presence of someone she had hoped to never see again. Fubuki, the figure called, his voice sending a chill down her spine. It's time to come home. Minato's eyes hardened. Who are you? He demanded, stepping in front of Fubuki, protectively. The man's lips curled into a smirk. Someone from her past. Someone who's come to take her back. Fubuki's heart sank as the figure's identity became clear. He was a powerful warrior from her old world, someone she had fought alongside, someone she had once trusted. His name was Kaido, and he had been the one to first recruit her into the Blizzard of Hell, the group she had once led. But now, seeing him again, she realized that his arrival wasn't a sign of friendship. It was a sign that her past had caught up to her. You're not welcome here, Fubuki said, her voice cold and firm, though her heart was racing with the memories of her old life. I've left that world behind. I'm not going back. Kaido's eyes gleamed with malice. You may have left, but you can't outrun your past. You belong to us, Fubuki. You're needed back where you came from. The Blizzard of Hell is in disarray without you, and the balance of power is shifting. Come with me, and I'll spare this village from the wrath of my forces. Fubuki's mind raced. She knew Kaido's threats weren't idle. The Blizzard of Hell had been a group of elite warriors, and though she had severed ties with them, she knew that Kaido wasn't one to bluff. If she didn't return, he would likely destroy everything she had come to care about, Konoha, Minato, Naruto, everything would be at risk. Minato's voice broke through her thoughts. If you want her, you'll have to go through me first. Kaido's gaze turned to Minato, his smirk widening. I had hoped it wouldn't come to this. But if you insist. Before anyone could move, Kaido raised his hand, summoning a burst of dark chakra that filled the air. The force of the energy sent shockwaves through the village, shaking the ground beneath them. Minato and Fubuki both jumped into action, ready to protect their home and their family. Fubuki's eyes locked with Minato's, and for the first time in a long while, she felt the weight of the decision she was facing. The past and the future were colliding in this moment. She had to protect her family, her new family, but she also had to face the consequences of her past. We fight together, Fubuki said, her voice unwavering. We don't back down. Not this time. Minato nodded, his gaze intense. Together. The battle that followed was fierce. Kaido was powerful, stronger than anyone Fubuki had faced since coming to Konoha. His chakra was dark and suffocating, pushing against the very essence of their will. But Fubuki and Minato fought side by side, their movements synchronized as if they had been partners in battle for years. Minato used his speed and precision to keep Kaido on the defensive, creating openings for Fubuki to strike. Her combat skills, honed through years of battle, were a perfect complement to Minato's agility and mastery of chakra. Together, they were a formidable team, but Kaido was relentless. He fought with a fury that spoke of years of regret, of anger, and of his desire to reclaim what he had lost. At one point, Kaido managed to land a blow on Minato, sending him crashing to the ground. Fubuki's heart skipped a beat, but Minato quickly recovered, his expression grim but determined. Minato! Fubuki called, rushing to his side. I'm fine, he replied, his voice steady. We have to finish this. Fubuki stood tall, her eyes locking with Kaido's. I'm not the person I once was, she said, her voice filled with conviction. I won't return to your world. I won't go back to the Blizzard of Hell. My place is here, by Minato's side. By Naruto's side. Kaido sneered. You're weak if you think you can protect them. The world you found here is fragile. It won't last. Fubuki's fists clenched as she stepped forward. I'll protect them. With my life, I'll protect them. Together, she and Minato unleashed a combined attack, chakra-infused strikes that sent a shockwave through the air. Kaido staggered back, surprised by the sheer force of their bond, their unity. With one final, powerful move, Fubuki and Minato overpowered Kaido, sending him flying across the battlefield. He crashed into the ground, his form vanishing in a burst of dark chakra. When the battle was over, Fubuki stood, breathing heavily, her body bruised but strong. Minato walked over to her, his eyes soft with relief and pride. "You didn't have to face that alone," Minato said quietly, his voice full of respect. Fubuki looked at him, her heart filled with gratitude. "I didn't. You were with me. And you always will be." Minato smiled, taking her hand in his. "You'll never have to choose, Fubuki. This is your home now. We're your family." Fubuki looked at the village before them, the familiar buildings and faces of Konoha. She had made her choice. She had faced her past, but her future was here. With Minato. With Naruto. And nothing would take that away from her. End of Chapter 10. Chapter 11, A Mother's Heart. The days following the battle with Kaido were filled with a tense quiet, like the calm after a storm. Konoha had been temporarily shaken, but the village had held strong, as it always did. Yet, for Fubuki, the dust hadn't fully settled. The confrontation with Kaido had brought up more than just the danger of her past, it had made her question everything she had built in Konoha, everything she had come to love. Fubuki stood by the window, looking out at the village below. The peaceful evening light bathed the streets in a golden hue, the usual hustle and bustle of Konoha now a distant hum. Her eyes followed the familiar paths, tracing them in thought, but her mind wasn't on the village. It was on Naruto. Her son. The child she had brought into this world, into a world so full of danger. Every moment she spent with him was filled with love, but also with an ever-present, quiet fear. Naruto was growing up in a world where strength meant survival, and Fubuki couldn't ignore the reality of what that meant. She had fought countless battles in her past life, seen people she loved fall, and now, she was terrified that the same fate might await her son. A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts, and she turned to see Minato standing in the doorway, his usual calm demeanor unchanged, despite the tension that hung in the air. "Fubuki," he said softly, his voice filled with warmth. "You've been quiet today. Is everything all right?" Fubuki took a deep breath, trying to steady her emotions. "I'm just worried," she admitted, her voice quiet but filled with concern. "Naruto is growing so quickly. He's so powerful, Minato. But I fear he's not ready for what this world holds. For the dangers he'll face. I can't protect him from everything." Minato's expression softened, and he stepped closer, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "You don't have to protect him from everything, Fubuki. We both know that. But you can teach him to protect himself. To be strong, both in body and spirit." Fubuki's eyes filled with tears, though she quickly blinked them away. "It's not just that, Minato. I keep feeling like I'm living in two worlds at once. I'm here, with you and Naruto, and I love you both more than I can express. But the past never lets go. I left that world behind, but I can't stop wondering if my past will catch up with us. What if it brings danger to Naruto, to all of us? What if the world I've left behind tries to take him away from me?" Minato's heart ached as he listened to her words. He understood her fear, he had seen the scars of her past, the things she had fought through to build a life in Konoha. But he also knew the strength she carried, the fierce love she had for their family. "You're not alone in this, Fubuki," Minato said softly, his voice steady with the reassurance she needed. "We are a family now. And no matter what happens, we'll face it together. You don't have to carry this burden by yourself." Fubuki turned to face him, her eyes filled with gratitude. "I know," she whispered. "But sometimes, I feel so torn. I love this life with you, with Naruto. But there's a part of me that fears I'm not strong enough to protect him. To protect both of you. Minato gently cupped her face in his hands, his eyes unwavering. You are strong, Fubuki. Stronger than you know. And as much as we can't protect Naruto from everything, we can teach him the most important lesson he'll ever need, how to face the world with courage. How to love and protect the people around him, just as you love and protect us. That's the legacy we give him. And we'll do it together. Fubuki closed her eyes for a moment, letting his words settle in her heart. She knew Minato was right. She knew that, in the end, it wasn't just about protecting Naruto from every threat. It was about teaching him to be strong, to face the world with the same love and determination that had brought her and Minato together. But it was hard, so hard, to let go of the fear that still gripped her heart. I just don't want him to lose the joy he has now, Fubuki murmured, her voice trembling slightly. I don't want him to become hardened by this world. I don't want him to lose his innocence, to lose his heart. Minato's thumb brushed gently against her cheek, his gaze soft and understanding. He won't lose his heart, Fubuki. Not as long as we're here to guide him. He will grow strong, but he will never lose his compassion. He will be the kind of man who fights for what's right, who protects those he loves. And you'll be the one who teaches him that. Fubuki smiled, her heart lightening ever so slightly. I hope so. I'm afraid, Minato. Afraid that I'm not doing enough. That I'm failing him somehow. Minato leaned in, his forehead resting gently against hers. You're not failing him, Fubuki. You're his mother. And no one can love him the way you do. That's the greatest strength you can give him. Fubuki closed her eyes, breathing in the warmth of his words. For the first time in what felt like weeks, she allowed herself to relax, to let go of some of the fear. She had always carried the weight of responsibility alone, had always been the one to bear the burden of the world. But Minato was right. She wasn't alone anymore. The following days were spent in a quiet sense of determination. Fubuki and Minato continued to train Naruto, honing his combat skills and chakra control. But there was a shift in their approach, a shared understanding between them that it wasn't just about strength. It was about balance. They taught Naruto not just how to fight, but how to protect, how to love, and how to cherish the life they had built. Naruto's abilities continued to grow, but so did his heart. His laughter, his innocent joy, filled their home, reminding Fubuki that, despite the dangers of the world, there was still light. And that light, she realized, was worth fighting for. One evening, as Naruto ran toward them after a long day of training, his bright smile beaming, Fubuki felt her heart swell with a fierce love she hadn't known was possible. He was growing, yes. But he was also learning. And, most importantly, he was loved. Mom. Dad. Naruto exclaimed, running into their arms. Look. I did it. I can do the jutsu now. Fubuki and Minato exchanged a smile, their hearts full as they watched their son. He was growing into someone incredible, someone who would face whatever challenges came his way, not with fear, but with love and determination. You're amazing, Naruto, Fubuki said, her voice thick with emotion. Minato smiled, his hand resting on Fubuki's shoulder. He's our son. And he's going to change the world. Fubuki nodded, her gaze shifting to the horizon, where the sun had set, casting the village in a soft, golden light. She knew the future was uncertain. But with Minato by her side, and Naruto's laughter filling their home, she was ready to face whatever came next. Because together, they were a family. And that was all she needed. End of chapter 11. Chapter 12, The Ties That Bind. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a fiery glow across the Hidden Leaf village. The air was still, almost too quiet, as if the world was holding its breath. Waiting for something. Fubuki stood beside Minato, her gaze fixed on the village before them, her heart heavy with the weight of the decision she had made. This village, these people, they had become her family. Her home. And she would fight for them. Naruto, who had been training with his father, ran toward them, his bright smile lighting up his face as he approached. His energy was boundless, and his enthusiasm was contagious. Fubuki's heart swelled with love and pride. She had always known he would grow up to be strong, but seeing him now, full of potential, was both a blessing and a reminder of the dangers they all faced. "Mom! Dad!" Naruto exclaimed as he reached them. "Look, I can do the shadow clone jutsu now." Minato chuckled, ruffling his son's hair. "That's great, Naruto. You're getting stronger every day." Fubuki smiled, her heart full. "You're amazing, Naruto," she said, her voice warm with affection. "But remember, it's not just about strength. It's about using your abilities wisely." Naruto nodded enthusiastically. "I will, Mom. I'll protect everyone." Fubuki's smile faltered for a moment. Protecting others was a heavy burden, especially in a world filled with so much danger. She had learned that the hard way, and now her son, her precious boy, was facing the same challenges. She wanted to shield him from the pain she had endured, to keep him safe from the harsh reality of the world. But deep down, she knew that the world wasn't something to be feared, it was something to be shaped, something to be fought for. She glanced at Minato, who was watching her with a soft, understanding gaze. His presence was a constant source of strength, and in his eyes, she saw not just the Hokage, but the man who had become her partner, her equal. Together, they had built something beautiful, something worth protecting. "We'll face it together," Minato said quietly, as if reading her thoughts. "No matter what comes, Fubuki, we're a family. We're strong, and we'll protect each other." Fubuki nodded, her resolve strengthening. "I know. And I will fight for that strength. For you. For Naruto. For the village." The days that followed brought a growing tension to Konoha. Despite their efforts to maintain peace, rumors of a new threat began to spread, whispers of enemies gathering in the shadows, plotting to bring down the village from within. The tranquility Fubuki had come to cherish now seemed like a fragile illusion. One evening, Minato called Fubuki into his office, his face grim. He was already at the desk, studying several reports, when she entered. His eyes met hers, and for a moment, there was a heavy silence between them. "We've received word of movements near the border," Minato said, his voice steady but filled with a quiet urgency. "There's a group of rogue ninjas, likely mercenaries, moving towards Konoha. I believe they're looking to destabilize the village. It could be the beginning of something bigger." Fubuki's heart sank as the weight of his words settled in. Konoha had always faced threats, but this felt different. "What's the plan?" she asked, her voice firm despite the growing unease inside her. Minato stood up, walking over to her. "We'll need to prepare, and we'll need to act fast. I want you and Naruto to stay here for now, out of the line of fire. You'll be safe in the village, and I'll lead the defense." Fubuki shook her head, a surge of determination rising within her. "No, Minato. I'm not sitting this one out. I fought before, and I will fight again. You don't have to do this alone. Our family will face this together." Minato's eyes softened, but there was no hesitation in his voice when he spoke. "I'm not asking you to stay back, Fubuki. I know you'll fight. We'll fight together. But I need to make sure the village is prepared. Naruto's training isn't finished yet, and I want him to be ready, too. We'll all stand united." Fubuki nodded, the bond between them stronger than ever. She understood his concerns, but she also understood that they had no choice. This was their life now. Protecting Konoha, protecting Naruto, was their duty. And Fubuki had made up her mind. "I'll do whatever it takes to protect Naruto," she said. Her voice steady. "This village is my home now. I'm not running from the past anymore. I'm facing the future, with you, with Naruto, and with the village." As the night fell, Fubuki stood beside Minato on the walls of Konoha, looking out over the village they had sworn to protect. The quiet was gone, replaced by the distant hum of preparation. The village was on high alert, and every shinobi, young and old, had rallied together to defend their home. Naruto stood by her side, his small hands clenched into fists, his expression serious. "I'll protect you both, Mom. Dad. I'll do my best." Fubuki placed a hand on his head, her heart swelling with pride. "We know you will, Naruto. But remember, this fight is about more than just strength. It's about heart. You fight for what you love. For your family. For the people who depend on you." Naruto's eyes shone with determination. "I'll make you proud, Mom. Dad." Minato joined them, his gaze focused on the horizon, where the first signs of the enemy were beginning to appear. "We'll make sure the village stays safe. Together, we're unstoppable." Fubuki nodded, her hand slipping into Minato's. She felt the strength of their connection, of their bond, and in that moment, she knew with absolute certainty that they would face whatever came together. The night of the attack arrived sooner than they had expected. The rogue ninjas, led by a group of mercenaries, made their move on Konoha's outer defenses. The battle was intense, but the combined forces of the village held strong. Fubuki fought alongside Minato, her combat skills honed through years of experience, and Naruto, under Minato's watchful eye, demonstrated his growing strength in battle. Fubuki's heart beat fiercely as she faced off against one of the enemy leaders, a rogue ninja with chakra-infused blades. Their weapons clashed with a loud ringing sound, sparks flying as Fubuki parried his strikes with precise movements. She was fast, stronger than he anticipated, and with every strike, the weight of her responsibility, to protect her family, to protect Konoha, was evident. Minato was close by, his own battle unfolding as he faced another group of mercenaries. Their coordination was flawless, their movements so perfectly timed that it was as if they had been fighting together their entire lives. Naruto, though still young, fought with a ferocity that took even the enemy by surprise. He was quick, his chakra control improving with each passing day, and when the battle seemed to grow darker, he was there, by his parents' side, ready to defend the family he loved. The final wave of attackers came as dawn broke, the first rays of sunlight casting light on the battlefield. With a final, coordinated attack, Fubuki, Minato, and Naruto overwhelmed the remaining enemies, sending them fleeing from the village. The battle had been won, but the aftermath lingered in the air. As the dust settled, Fubuki stood with Minato and Naruto, their bodies bruised but their spirits unbroken. The village was safe, for now, but Fubuki knew that this was only the beginning. Her heart, once torn between two worlds, was now fully aligned with the life she had chosen. Konoha was her home, and her family, Minato and Naruto, were her world. No matter what dangers the future held, she would fight for them. She would fight for Konoha. Together, they were stronger than anything the world could throw at them. End of Chapter 12. Chapter 13, Growing Pains. The sound of footsteps echoed through the empty training grounds as Naruto stood at the center, his small body tense, his hands trembling slightly. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he concentrated, trying to perfect the jutsu Minato had shown him earlier. It had been a long morning of training, but today was different. Today, the pressure of living up to his parents' legacies seemed to weigh heavier on his shoulders than ever before. Fubuki watched from a distance, her heart aching as she observed her son. Naruto was incredibly talented, there was no denying that. His natural speed, agility, and chakra control were impressive for someone his age. But beneath his bright smile and eager spirit, Fubuki could see the growing unease. The strain of trying to live up to the immense expectations that came with being the son of both the fourth Hokage and the powerful warrior, Fubuki herself. She had always known that Naruto would have big shoes to fill. Minato, the Hokage, was admired by all of Konoha, and Fubuki had her own legacy as a formidable warrior. It wasn't just the village that had high expectations, it was Naruto, too. He was constantly aware of the weight of his lineage. And though Fubuki and Minato did their best to reassure him, she knew that Naruto's insecurities were only growing as he began his ninja training in earnest. "Focus, Naruto," Minato's voice rang out from across the field. "Your chakra control needs more refinement. Don't try to rush it." Naruto nodded, frustration evident on his face as he tried once again to concentrate. He extended his hand, trying to form the familiar hand signs. The chakra in his palm flickered and then sputtered out. He clenched his fists, a deep sigh escaping his lips. I can't do it. I can't even make the clone jutsu work like you do, Dad. Minato walked over, his eyes soft but his tone firm. You're trying too hard, Naruto. Take a breath. This isn't about perfection. It's about understanding your power. You have to trust yourself, just like I trust you. Naruto's eyes were downcast, frustration mixing with self-doubt. I don't think I'm as good as you and Mom. You guys are so strong, and I'm still just, me. Fubuki felt a pang in her heart at his words. She knew this feeling too well, the pressure of trying to live up to others' expectations, the fear of falling short, of being unworthy of the love and trust others had in you. But she also knew that Naruto was different. He had the heart and the courage to surpass his doubts. He just needed to see it for himself. Later that evening, Fubuki sat beside Naruto, who was playing with a small wooden toy in the corner of their home. The sun had set, casting a warm, golden light over the room, and the soft sounds of the village outside carried through the open window. Hey, Naruto, Fubuki began, her voice soft but strong. How are you feeling? Naruto looked up at her, his bright blue eyes shadowed with uncertainty. I'm fine, Mom. I can't get it right. I keep messing up the jutsu, and I know I'm supposed to be stronger. Fubuki's heart ached at the sight of her son, so full of potential, but weighed down by the expectations he placed on himself. She gently moved over to sit next to him, placing a hand on his shoulder. Listen to me, she said, her voice steady. You're already stronger than you think. Strength isn't just about how fast you can make clones, or how many jutsu you can do perfectly. Strength is about your heart. It's about not giving up, no matter how hard things get. And you, Naruto, have one of the strongest hearts I've ever seen. Naruto looked at her, his eyes searching for the truth in her words. But I'm not like you, Mom. Or Dad. You guys are, you're amazing. Fubuki smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair from his face. You don't have to be like us, Naruto. You just have to be you. Your own strength, your own path. I know it's hard, but you don't need to prove anything to anyone except yourself. Minato walked into the room then, standing in the doorway with a gentle smile. Fubuki's right, Naruto. You've already shown us all your strength. It's not in the jutsu you perform or the speed you have. It's in your willingness to keep going, no matter how hard it gets. Naruto looked up at his parents, a flicker of hope in his eyes. He sat silently for a moment, absorbing their words. Then, a small but determined smile spread across his face. Okay. I'll try again. I'll keep trying until I get it right. Fubuki's heart swelled with pride. That's my boy, she whispered. Minato crouched down to Naruto's level. We're always here for you, Naruto. No matter what happens, we're your family. And we'll face everything together. The next few weeks were filled with intense training. Minato and Fubuki worked together, each contributing their own expertise to help Naruto develop his skills. Fubuki focused on teaching Naruto the practical applications of combat, using strategy and discipline to guide him. She taught him the importance of thinking ahead in battle, of using his mind as much as his physical strength. Meanwhile, Minato continued his focus on chakra control, helping Naruto refine his ability to manipulate his energy, to not just use it, but to control it. It wasn't easy, and there were times when Naruto felt discouraged. But with each passing day, he grew stronger, not just in his abilities, but in his confidence. He was starting to understand what his parents had always told him: strength was not just about power. It was about heart, about resilience, about pushing through the moments of doubt to emerge stronger on the other side. One evening, after a long day of training, Naruto came to Fubuki, a determined look in his eyes. "Mom, I think I've got it," he said. I want to try the shadow clone jutsu again. Fubuki smiled at him, her heart swelling with pride. I know you can do it, Naruto. You've come so far already. You just need to believe in yourself. With renewed determination, Naruto concentrated, performing the hand signs slowly but steadily. Fubuki watched as a burst of chakra formed before him, and within moments, several clones appeared. Naruto's eyes lit up with triumph. I did it, he exclaimed, grinning from ear to ear. Fubuki embraced him, her heart full of emotion. You did, Naruto. You did it. I'm so proud of you. That night, as Fubuki and Minato stood on the balcony, looking out at the village, Minato turned to her, his eyes soft with understanding. You were right, Fubuki, he said quietly. He just needed time. And he needed to know that we believed in him. Fubuki nodded, her heart lighter than it had been in a long time. He's growing up so quickly. But he's ready. He'll be ready for whatever comes next. Minato took her hand in his, squeezing it gently. Together, we'll guide him. And together, we'll face whatever challenges this world throws our way. Fubuki looked at Minato, her heart filled with love for the man standing beside her. The future was uncertain, but with Minato, with Naruto, she knew one thing for sure, they would face it all together, as a family. And that was the greatest strength of all. End of Chapter 13. Chapter 14, Shadows of the Past. The night was eerily quiet in Konoha, the village's usual hum of activity muffled by a heavy stillness. Fubuki stood on the edge of the Hokage's mansion, gazing out at the village below. The cool night air ruffled her hair as her mind wandered, not for the first time, to the life she had left behind. Her past, the battles she had fought, the people she had once trusted, all seemed like distant echoes, faint shadows that lingered in the corners of her thoughts. But tonight, those shadows were growing darker. The familiar surge of chakra hit her suddenly, an overwhelming wave that sent a chill down her spine. It was the same feeling she had sensed all those months ago when Kaido arrived, a reminder of the world she had tried to escape. But this time, the chakra felt different, colder, more malicious. Something was coming, and Fubuki could feel it in her bones. She turned toward the doorway, where Minato stood watching her. His expression was calm, but the unease in his eyes told her everything she needed to know. He had felt it too. We've got trouble, Minato said quietly, stepping forward. I can feel it, Fubuki. This isn't just some random attack. Someone is coming for you. Fubuki's heart sank, the weight of her past crashing over her like a wave. She had hoped that, by leaving her old life behind, she could protect her new family from the ghosts that haunted her. But now, they were here again, and she knew this fight wasn't something she could avoid. I have to face this, she said, her voice steady but filled with an undercurrent of uncertainty. They won't stop until I do. Minato walked up to her, his gaze soft but resolute. Then we'll face it together. Whatever it is, whatever you have to confront, I'm right here with you. Fubuki turned to him, gratitude swelling in her chest. I know, she whispered. I'm not alone. But I'm afraid, Minato. Afraid that this battle is one I can't win. That my past will tear apart the life we've built. Minato took her hand, squeezing it gently. You've already won, Fubuki. You found a new life. And we've built something beautiful together. Whatever happens, that won't change. The attack came swiftly, as expected. In the dead of night, shadowy figures appeared at the gates of Konoha. They were fast, ruthless, and relentless, but Fubuki recognized their movements. This wasn't just a rogue group. These were elite warriors, skilled in the dark arts of assassination and sabotage. The very same kind of warriors she had once led. A familiar, cold voice cut through the chaos as Fubuki and Minato stood ready to defend their village. Fubuki, the voice rang out. You can't escape the past forever. Fubuki's breath caught in her throat as a tall, imposing figure stepped forward from the shadows. His face was masked, but his chakra felt all too familiar. It was Ryu, a former comrade of hers from the blizzard of hell. The cold, calculating warrior she had once called an ally. The very man who had been part of the group that turned her life upside down before she left it all behind. You shouldn't have come here, Fubuki said, her voice low but firm, the weight of years of unresolved feelings pressing on her chest. I left that life behind. I left you behind. Ria's laugh was a hollow, cold sound that sent shivers down her spine. You think you can run from your past, Fubuki? You were a leader once, and you still carry the mark of your past. No matter how hard you try to bury it, it's still there, beneath the surface. It's calling you back. Fubuki stepped forward, her body tense. My place is here now. With my family. You and your past have no hold over me anymore. Ria's eyes gleamed with a cruel smile beneath his mask. We'll see about that. The battle was fierce, a whirlwind of jutsu and speed. Fubuki's past and present collided as she fought not only for the village she had come to love, but for the family she had vowed to protect. Ryu and his group were formidable, skilled in the dark and dangerous arts, but Fubuki was no stranger to battle. The fight was a blur of punches, chakra-infused strikes, and close combat, each move echoing the years of training she had put in as a warrior. Minato was by her side, his speed and precision cutting through their enemies with unmatched skill. His presence was a constant reminder of the life she had now, the life she had fought so hard to build. And with every strike they landed together, Fubuki felt herself growing stronger, pushing past the haunting memories that had held her back for so long. But Ryu wasn't going down easily. The battle raged on, and the toll on both sides was becoming clear. Fubuki's heart raced as Ryu delivered a blow to her, sending her crashing to the ground. Pain flared in her chest, but she refused to falter. Fubuki! Minato called out, rushing to her side. I'm fine, she gritted out, pushing herself up. This isn't over. Ryu sneered. You think you can defeat me after all this time? You were nothing without us, Fubuki. You'll always be a part of the blizzard of hell. You can't escape that. Fubuki's eyes blazed with determination as she stood tall, her body aching, but her resolve unwavering. I'm not that person anymore. I left you behind because I chose to. This is my family now, my home. And I'll protect it with everything I have. With a roar, Fubuki charged forward, her chakra flaring brightly. Minato, sensing the shift in her resolve, followed her lead, their movements synchronized as they launched a final, combined assault. The sheer force of their attack overwhelmed Ryu and his mercenaries, sending them crashing to the ground in defeat. As the dust settled, Fubuki stood over Ryu's fallen form, her breath heavy but her heart lightened. She had faced her past, and she had won. Minato stood beside her, his hand resting on her shoulder. You did it, he said, his voice filled with pride. Fubuki looked at him, her gaze softening. We did it, she corrected gently. In the aftermath, as the village recovered from the attack, Fubuki stood on the Hokage's balcony once again, her eyes scanning the familiar village below. The weight of her past was still there, but it no longer held her captive. She had faced it head-on, fought for her new life, and emerged victorious. Minato joined her, his presence a constant source of strength. You've made peace with it, haven't you? He asked quietly. Fubuki nodded, a sense of calm settling over her. I've made peace with us. With the life I've built here. I'm not running anymore. This is my home. Konoha. With you. With Naruto. Minato smiled, pulling her close. We're all here. And we'll face whatever comes, together. Fubuki looked out over the village, a feeling of completeness washing over her. She had fought for this life, this family, and nothing, not even the shadows of her past, could take it away. She had found her place. And it was here, with Minato, with Naruto, and with Konoha. End of Chapter 14. Chapter 15, A Mother's Strength. The sun rose over Konoha, casting a warm golden light over the village. The air was crisp, filled with the sound of morning life. Birds chirped as they flitted across the rooftops, and the streets began to bustle with the usual energy of the village. But in the Hokage's mansion, there was an unusual quiet. Fubuki stood by the window, her gaze distant as she watched the village below. Her heart was uneasy, her mind restless. Today was the day. Naruto had been assigned his first real mission. At 12 years old, Naruto was no longer just a child. He had been training relentlessly for the past few years, honing his skills under the watchful eyes of both Minato and Fubuki. But while they had seen his growth, today marked a turning point. Today, Naruto would face the challenges of the ninja world firsthand. "Mom," Naruto's voice broke through her thoughts. She turned to see him standing in the doorway, his expression a mix of excitement and nervousness. "I'm ready for this." Fubuki smiled gently, but her heart clenched in her chest. She could see it in his eyes, the eagerness, the readiness, but also the hesitation. She knew that this mission, though a simple reconnaissance task, would be a significant moment in his development. It would test him, push him to his limits. "Naruto," she said softly, walking over to him. "I know you are. But no matter how ready we think we are, sometimes things can get unpredictable. Remember to keep calm, think things through, and always look out for your teammates." Naruto nodded, determination in his eyes. "I will, Mom. I promise." Fubuki placed a hand on his shoulder, her voice steady but filled with a deep, protective love. "And know this, Naruto, no matter what happens, you have your family behind you. We believe in you." Minato entered the room then, his usual calm demeanor intact. His eyes softened as he took in the scene, the tender moment between mother and son. He stepped up beside Fubuki, placing a hand on Naruto's other shoulder. "You're ready, Naruto," Minato said, his voice confident and reassuring. "But remember, you don't have to do this alone. You've got your team with you, and you've got us watching over you." Fubuki smiled, feeling the warmth of Minato's words. They complemented each other perfectly, Minato's calm assurance and her own nurturing instinct. Together, they had built a family that was both strong and unified. And now, they had to trust that Naruto would find his own strength, even if it meant facing dangers on his own. The mission was simple enough. Naruto and a small team of ninjas were tasked with scouting a potential enemy hideout at the edge of the village. The assignment was considered low risk, but Fubuki couldn't shake the unease gnawing at her heart. The world they lived in was dangerous, and even a simple task could turn into something more. As Naruto and his team prepared to leave, Fubuki watched him carefully. She wanted to call out, to remind him of everything he had learned, every piece of advice she had given him over the years. But she knew this was his time to grow, to stand on his own 2 feet. "Be careful, Naruto," Fubuki said, her voice full of quiet emotion. "And don't forget, if you're in danger, always call for backup. Never hesitate to ask for help." Naruto gave her a bright smile, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of nervousness. "I won't, Mom. I'll be back before you know it." Minato placed a hand on Fubuki's shoulder as they watched their son leave. "He's ready. We've trained him well." Fubuki nodded, though the knot in her stomach remained. "I know. But no matter how ready he is, a mother's heart is never truly at ease until her child is safe." Hours passed in tense silence. Fubuki couldn't focus on anything. Every minute felt like an eternity. Her protective instincts were on full alert. She paced through the mansion, checking on the villagers' progress, talking to other shinobi, but her mind was always on Naruto. Every time she felt the stir of chakra near the gates or heard a distant noise, her heart would leap in her chest. Finally, as the sun began to set, the door opened, and Naruto walked in, his team following behind. Fubuki's breath caught as she saw him, but when she looked closely, she saw no visible injuries. He was panting from exertion, but there was a wide grin on his face, and his eyes sparkled with pride. "We did it!" Naruto exclaimed, rushing over to his parents. "The mission was a success. We found the hideout and got all the intel we needed without any problems." Fubuki's relief hit her like a wave, and she hugged him tightly, feeling the weight of the tension ease from her shoulders. I'm so proud of you, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. You did it, Naruto. Minato stepped forward, his proud smile reflecting his son's joy. Great job, Naruto. You handled the mission well. You've grown stronger than I imagined. Naruto's face lit up at their praise, but then his expression shifted, his eyes thoughtful. It wasn't easy, though. I was nervous when we got close to the hideout. What if we were spotted? What if something went wrong? He looked down at his hands. I kept thinking of what you both would say if something happened to me. I didn't want to let you down. Fubuki knelt in front of him, lifting his chin to meet her gaze. You didn't let us down, Naruto. You did exactly what you were trained to do. You stayed calm, thought things through, and you kept your team safe. That's all we could ever ask of you. Minato placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder, his voice gentle. The pressure of being who you are, the son of both the Hokage and a warrior, it can feel heavy. But remember this, you don't have to carry that weight alone. We're here for you. And we're proud of you no matter what. Naruto looked up at them, a small smile forming on his lips. Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. I couldn't have done it without you. Fubuki smiled back, her heart full. You've got the strength of both of us inside you, Naruto. But more than that, you've got your own strength. And that's what makes you special. Later that evening, after the excitement had settled and the village was peaceful once again, Fubuki and Minato sat together on the porch, watching the stars. Naruto was already in bed, his energy from the day still radiating in the way he tossed and turned in his sleep. Minato, Fubuki said quietly, her gaze fixed on the night sky. Do you think we did the right thing, letting him go on this mission? I know he's ready, but I can't help but feel like I put him in danger. Minato reached over, taking her hand in his. He's ready, Fubuki. You've taught him well. He's proven that today. And every time he faces a challenge, he grows stronger. Fubuki nodded, feeling the weight of her worries begin to lift. I know. But it's hard to let go. To let him step into the world as his own person. Minato smiled softly, squeezing her hand. It's the hardest thing we'll ever do, but it's also the most important. We raise them to be strong, to be independent, and to stand on their own. But we'll always be here for him. And he'll always be our son. Fubuki leaned her head against his shoulder, a sense of peace settling over her. Together, we'll face whatever comes. As a family. Minato kissed the top of her head, his voice filled with warmth. Together. End of chapter 15. Chapter 16, Becoming a Hero. The winds of Konoha stirred gently as the village went about its daily rhythm. But for one young ninja, today felt different. Naruto stood on the training grounds, sweat trickling down his forehead as he wiped it away with the back of his hand. His heart raced, not from the intensity of the training, but from something deeper, a sense of purpose that had been growing inside him for weeks. Today, something was clicking inside him. He had trained hard, learned from his parents, and faced his doubts head-on. And now, Naruto was starting to understand the true meaning of strength. It wasn't just about chakra control, or executing jutsu with precision. It wasn't about surpassing his father, or proving himself to the village. It was about something deeper. It was about forging his own path, defining what kind of ninja he would be, not because of his parents' legacies, but because of who he was becoming. Fubuki and Minato stood nearby, observing him from the sidelines. They had watched their son grow from a curious, eager child into a young man with determination and heart. They both knew the path Naruto was walking wasn't an easy one, being the son of the Hokage and a powerful warrior carried its own burdens. But Naruto was finding his own way. Minato stepped forward, a smile tugging at his lips. Naruto, you're looking more confident every day. How do you feel? Naruto wiped his brow and stood tall, facing his father. I feel good, Dad. I'm finally starting to get it. I don't have to be anyone else. I don't have to live up to your expectations, or Mom's. I just need to be me. Fubuki walked up beside them, her smile soft, but filled with pride. Exactly. You're already doing great, Naruto. You've always been you, and that's what makes you special. Your strength comes from your heart, not from trying to meet someone else's standards. Naruto looked at both of them, feeling a surge of gratitude. For years, he had struggled with the idea that he had to live up to the incredible legacies of both Minato and Fubuki. He had admired them, of course, his father, the Hokage, the hero of the Fourth Great Ninja War, his mother, a fierce and powerful warrior. But as time passed, Naruto realized that their strength wasn't just about their titles or their abilities. It was about their courage, their integrity, and their willingness to stand by those they loved. They were heroes, not because of their power, but because of the choices they made. I've been thinking, Naruto said, his voice steady with newfound confidence. I don't need to be the Hokage. I don't need to be some legendary warrior like you, Mom. I want to be a hero, but in my own way. I want to help people and protect the village, but I want to do it as me. Minato nodded, his pride in his son evident in the way he looked at him. That's exactly what makes you a true ninja, Naruto. You're not bound by anyone's expectations. You're carving your own path. You're already a hero, in the way that matters most. Fubuki's heart swelled with emotion as she placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. I couldn't agree more. You've already shown your strength by being true to yourself, by staying loyal to your beliefs. That's the kind of hero the world needs. Naruto's face broke into a grin, his eyes shining with determination. I'm going to be the best hero I can be. Not because of my parents or their legacy, but because I believe in what I'm doing. Over the next few weeks, Naruto's confidence continued to grow as he trained and carried out missions for the village. His skills were improving, but more importantly, his sense of self was becoming clearer. He no longer felt weighed down by the expectations of others. He had begun to carve out his identity as a ninja, one that was uniquely his own. During one of his missions, Naruto was sent to assist a small village on the outskirts of the Land of Fire. The mission involved protecting the villagers from a group of rogue bandits who had been causing trouble in the area. It was a relatively low-risk mission, but for Naruto, it was his first time taking on a leadership role. He was in charge of the operation and responsible for the safety of the villagers. As they arrived at the village, Naruto immediately took charge, surveying the area and making quick decisions on how to protect the citizens. The bandits were more numerous than expected, but Naruto wasn't deterred. He strategized with his team, using his quick thinking and the lessons he had learned from both Minato and Fubuki to keep the villagers safe. The battle was fierce, but Naruto led the charge with determination and courage. When the mission was complete and the villagers were safe, Naruto stood at the edge of the village, watching the sunset as his team gathered around him. His heart was full, but there was something else, something he hadn't felt before, pride in himself, in the hero he was becoming. You did well, Naruto, one of his teammates said, clapping him on the back. That was some great leadership. Naruto grinned, his confidence shining through. Thanks. It wasn't easy, but we all pulled together. It feels good, you know? Helping people, protecting them. It's what I want to do for the rest of my life. Back in Konoha, Fubuki and Minato were waiting for him, as always, when he returned. They had both been proud of him before, but now, there was something different in the way they looked at him. It wasn't just about his strength, or his jutsu. It was about the person he was becoming. A true hero. How did it go, Naruto? Minato asked, his voice filled with warmth. We did it, Dad, Naruto replied, his eyes sparkling. We stopped the bandits, and the village is safe. I led the mission. It wasn't easy, but I did it. Fubuki's heart swelled with pride as she embraced him. I'm so proud of you, Naruto. You're becoming exactly the kind of hero we always knew you could be. Not because you have power, but because of your heart. Naruto smiled, his gaze meeting both of theirs. I think I'm finally starting to understand. I don't have to be someone else. I just have to be me. Minato and Fubuki exchanged a glance, their eyes filled with pride and love. And that's what makes you the strongest, Naruto, Minato said quietly. Being yourself is the greatest strength you can have. Naruto looked out over the village, feeling a sense of peace settle over him. Konoha was his home, and it was where he had found his purpose. He didn't have to live up to anyone else's expectations. He didn't have to be the Hokage, or the son of a legendary warrior. He just had to be the best ninja, the best hero, that he could be. And that was enough. End of chapter 16. Chapter 17, The Ultimate Test. The sun was setting over Konoha, painting the sky with streaks of orange and pink. It was a peaceful evening, the kind that felt like a promise of respite after the long days of training and missions. Naruto was with his friends, laughing as they sparred in the training grounds, while Minato and Fubuki stood on the balcony of their home, watching the village below. But the tranquility was short-lived. A sudden, overwhelming surge of chakra pierced the calm, a dark and oppressive energy that sent a chill down Fubuki's spine. It wasn't the first time she had felt such a presence, but this time, it was different, stronger, more malicious. Fubuki's eyes narrowed, her senses on high alert. Minato, something's wrong, she said quietly, her voice tense, with a sudden sense of danger. Minato's eyes sharpened as he turned to face her. I felt it too. This chakra, it's unlike anything I've encountered before. Before they could say anything more, the earth beneath them shook, and the ground rumbled with the force of an explosion. The sound of battle reached their ears, distant at first, but growing closer by the second. Naruto's laughter had been replaced by shouts of alarm from the training field. Stay here. Minato ordered, but Fubuki was already moving, her resolve hardening as she turned toward the door. No, she said firmly. I'm going with you. The battlefield outside Konoha's walls was a chaotic scene. The rogue enemy, powerful and relentless, had arrived with a force unlike any the village had faced before. Fubuki's heart clenched as she recognized their target, Naruto. The enemy's goal was clear, they had come for him, to strike at the very heart of Minato and Fubuki's family. Naruto was surrounded, fighting fiercely against the onslaught of attackers, but it was clear that even with his strength, he was outnumbered and overwhelmed. Naruto! Fubuki shouted, rushing toward the battlefield with Minato close behind. Stay calm, we're coming for you. Naruto's eyes widened when he saw them charging toward him. A mix of relief and fear flashed across his face. Mom. Dad. Get out of here. I can handle this. Fubuki's gaze hardened as she pushed forward, her chakra flaring around her. No, Naruto. We're here to protect you. We fight as a family. Minato's voice rang out, steady and commanding. Naruto, focus. Stay with us. We're stronger together. The battle raged on as Fubuki and Minato fought side by side, their movements in perfect synchronization. Fubuki's combat skills were unmatched, her years of experience in battle coming to the forefront as she took down enemies with precision and grace. Minato was every bit as efficient, his tactical mind guiding their every move. But the enemy they faced was unlike any other. The rogue force seemed to feed off chaos, their strength growing as the fight continued. Their leader, a towering figure clad in dark armor, stepped forward, his chakra radiating an oppressive, malevolent energy. You think you can protect him? The leader sneered, his voice booming across the battlefield. This child is the key to everything. And I will take him from you. Fubuki's eyes narrowed as she stepped forward, her heart thundering in her chest. She could feel the intensity of his chakra, a dark force that threatened to overwhelm them all. You'll have to go through me first, she said, her voice cold and filled with determination. The leader laughed, raising a hand to summon more of his forces. You are nothing but a memory, Fubuki. A relic of a time that's long gone. Fubuki's eyes flared with fury. You underestimate me, she snarled, charging forward with deadly precision. Minato was at Naruto's side in an instant, his eyes filled with both pride and concern. Naruto, listen to me. You've trained for this. You've learned how to control your chakra. Now is the time to show them what you're made of. Naruto clenched his fists, the weight of his parents' trust heavy on his shoulders. The pressure was immense, but something inside him clicked. He had faced doubts before, but this was different. This wasn't just about proving himself to anyone else. This was about protecting his family, about standing as the hero he knew he could be. He focused, letting the chakra within him flow, not with desperation, but with purpose. The wind around him began to swirl as he formed the familiar hand signs. He felt the power surge through his body, his chakra resonating with his very core. Shadow Clone Jutsu! Naruto shouted, and in an instant, dozens of clones appeared, each one ready to fight. The clones rushed forward, overwhelming the enemy forces with sheer numbers. Minato watched, his heart swelling with pride as he saw Naruto's control and leadership on display. The boy he had once worried about, the boy who had once doubted himself, was now standing as a true ninja, confident, strong, and ready to protect. Fubuki clashed with the enemy leader, her strength matching his at every turn. His dark chakra was powerful, but it was nothing compared to the strength that burned within her. She had always fought for others, her comrades, her village, her family, and now, she would fight for Naruto with everything she had. With a final, powerful strike, Fubuki unleashed her chakra in a concentrated blast, knocking the enemy leader back. He staggered, his dark energy crackling around him, but he was weakened. "Is that all you have?" Fubuki taunted, her voice filled with the confidence that had been building within her for years. "You'll never break us. Not now, not ever." With one final burst of energy, Fubuki and Minato struck in unison, taking down the last of the rogue forces. The leader fell to the ground, his energy dissipating like smoke in the wind. The battlefield was silent now, the echoes of battle slowly fading. Naruto stood beside his parents, his breathing heavy, but his spirit stronger than ever. Fubuki looked at him, her heart swelling with pride as she took in the young man before her. He had faced the ultimate test. And he had passed with flying colors. "Naruto," Fubuki said, her voice filled with emotion, "you did it. You've shown everyone what kind of hero you are." Naruto grinned, his exhaustion evident, but his pride shining through. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mom. Without you, Dad." Minato placed a hand on his shoulder, his voice filled with pride. "You did it, Naruto. You've become the hero you always dreamed of being. Not because of your legacy, but because of your heart." Fubuki's gaze softened as she looked at her son. "You're not just our son, Naruto. You're a hero in your own right. You've proven that today." Naruto looked at them, his heart full of gratitude. "Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. I'm proud to be part of this family. I'll keep fighting for you, for everyone in Konoha." As the three of them stood together, the village safe once more, Fubuki felt an overwhelming sense of peace. She had faced her past, fought for her family, and protected the future. And in doing so, she had secured her place as Naruto's mother, his protector, his guide, and his greatest supporter. End of Chapter 17. Chapter 18, A Family's Resolve. The village of Konoha was quiet once again. The sound of battle had long since faded, replaced by the calm rhythm of everyday life. People walked through the streets, sharing stories, laughing, and going about their business as though nothing had happened. The rogue forces were defeated, and the danger that had threatened the village was no more. But for Fubuki, the aftermath of the battle was not just a return to normal, it was a moment of deep reflection. She stood by the window in their home, gazing out at the village as the sun set behind the Hokage's mountain. The colors of the sky were soft, hues of purple and orange bleeding into each other. It was a peaceful sight, one she had come to love. It was hard to believe that only days ago, they had fought for their lives, for their family, for their future. Fubuki's thoughts turned inward, to the journey that had brought her here. She had come to Konoha as an outsider, a warrior from another world, unsure of her place. She had left behind everything she had known, her comrades, her old life, the person she had once been. She had come to a new world with nothing but her strength and a desire for peace. And now, here she was. A mother. A wife. A protector of Konoha. A part of something far greater than herself. Minato entered the room quietly, his presence a comforting constant. He stood beside her, his gaze following hers out the window, as though understanding the weight of the thoughts that filled her mind. "You've been quiet," Minato said softly, his voice steady and filled with warmth. "Are you okay?" Fubuki smiled, though there was a sadness in her eyes, a quiet reflection of the path she had taken. "I was just thinking about how much has changed since I came here. About how far I've come." Minato looked at her, his expression full of understanding. "It hasn't been easy. But look at what you've built. Look at what we've built together." Fubuki nodded, her hand unconsciously resting on her stomach, as though holding the family she had created. "I never imagined this life. When I first came to Konoha, I thought it was just another stop in my journey. I never expected to find a home or a family. And now, I can't imagine my life without it." Minato placed a hand on her shoulder, his touch gentle but filled with affection. "You've become part of Konoha's heart, Fubuki. You've made a family with me and Naruto. That's the greatest gift you could have ever given me." Fubuki turned to face him, her eyes soft with the love she felt for him. "And you, Minato. You've shown me what true strength is. Not just in battle, but in love, in patience, and in understanding. I couldn't have done it without you." Minato smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "We've done it together, Fubuki. We're a family." That evening, after dinner, Naruto joined them on the porch, his face full of excitement and energy. "Hey, Mom. Hey, Dad. The village is finally at peace. I can't believe it." Fubuki smiled as Naruto sat down next to her, his enthusiasm infectious. "You did great, Naruto," she said, ruffling his hair. "You're growing stronger every day." Minato leaned back in his chair, looking at their son with pride. "You're not just getting stronger in power, Naruto. You're getting stronger in heart. And that's the most important thing." Naruto grinned, but there was a moment of quiet reflection in his eyes. "I know. I used to think I had to be like you, Dad. Or like you, Mom. But I get it now. I just have to be me. That's enough." Fubuki's heart swelled at his words. Her son was growing, learning to trust in himself and his own abilities. She had always feared that he would feel the weight of their legacies on his shoulders. But now, seeing him confident and sure of his own path, she knew that he was ready for whatever the world had in store for him. "You're right, Naruto," she said softly. "Being yourself is the most important thing. That's where true strength lies. And you've already shown that." Later that night, after Naruto had gone to bed, Fubuki and Minato sat together, their hands intertwined, looking out at the village from their porch. The quiet was soothing, the night air cool and fresh. It was moments like this, simple, peaceful, that filled Fubuki's heart with a deep sense of fulfillment. The battle was over. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, she felt truly at peace. "Minato," Fubuki said softly, her voice filled with emotion. "I know I've said it before, but I'm so grateful for everything. For you. For Naruto. For this life we've built together." Minato turned to her, his eyes soft with love and understanding. "I'm grateful for you, too, Fubuki. You've shown me that true strength isn't just about power. It's about the people we love, the family we protect. Together, we've built something strong." Fubuki's eyes glistened with unshed tears. She had been through so much in her life, faced so many battles, both external and internal. But now, she realized, she had found something that had eluded her for so long, a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose. She was part of something bigger than herself, and it was something worth fighting for. I'll protect you both, Fubuki whispered, her voice filled with unwavering resolve. I'll protect this family. No matter what happens, no matter what challenges we face, I'll fight for us. Because this family, is the greatest treasure I could ever have. Minato smiled and kissed her forehead, his voice filled with equal conviction. And I'll protect you, Fubuki. We'll protect Naruto. Together, we'll face whatever comes. The night grew deeper, the stars above Konoha shining brightly as the family sat together, their hearts united by the love they shared. Fubuki knew that the future was uncertain, that danger would always lurk on the horizon. But she was no longer afraid. She had found her place in this world, her place with Minato and Naruto. She had become a mother, a wife, and a warrior once more, but this time it was for something greater than herself. And with that resolve in her heart, she knew that whatever challenges came their way, they would face them together. As a family. End of Chapter 18. Chapter 19, Love Without Boundaries. The early morning light bathed Konoha in a soft glow, casting long shadows across the village as the day began anew. Fubuki stood at the window, watching as the village slowly came to life. Her heart felt lighter than it had in a long time. The past few months had been filled with challenges, dangerous missions, fierce battles, and the ever-present tension of being a mother and a wife to two powerful figures. But now, standing here, she realized just how far they had all come. She wasn't just a warrior anymore. She was a mother. A wife. A part of something greater than herself. A part of a family that had weathered every storm together, and a family that was growing stronger with each passing day. Minato entered the room quietly, his presence a steadying force in her life. He stepped up behind her, his hands resting on her shoulders. Without needing words, they shared a quiet moment, a bond formed through years of shared experiences, love, and challenges. "Good morning," Minato said softly. His voice warm and comforting. Fubuki turned to face him, her heart swelling with affection. "Good morning. I was just thinking about how much everything has changed. About how I feel like I've finally found my place here." Minato smiled, his eyes filled with pride and tenderness. "You've always had your place here, Fubuki. Right by my side. Right by Naruto's side. You've made this family what it is." Fubuki smiled back, her heart full. "And you, Minato. I never imagined this life. But it's the one I've always needed. The one I've always wanted." The days that followed were filled with moments of peace and joy, as Konoha continued to thrive, the threat of the past behind them. But there was always a sense of change in the air. Naruto had grown so much in recent months, his abilities, his confidence, his understanding of what it meant to be a ninja. He had faced his trials, and now, he was ready to step into his role as the son of the Hokage, as the child of both Minato and Fubuki. One afternoon, as they walked together through the village, Fubuki could see it in Naruto's eyes, he had come into his own. He no longer carried the weight of his parents' legacies with the same uncertainty. He had learned to trust in himself, in his heart, and in the love that had shaped him. He was no longer a child who needed to prove something. He was becoming a man who could lead, who could protect. "Mom, Dad," Naruto began, his voice filled with quiet determination. "I've been thinking a lot lately. About what comes next. About my role here in Konoha. I want to do more. I want to help, not just as a ninja, but as the son of the Hokage. I want to make this village proud." Fubuki looked at him, her heart swelling with pride. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone, Naruto. You've already made us proud. But if this is what you want, we'll be here to support you every step of the way." Minato nodded, his gaze firm with the confidence he had in his son. "You're ready, Naruto. You've grown into someone who will not only protect this village, but help guide it forward. Just remember, you don't have to do it alone. We're here. Always." Naruto's eyes brightened with a smile. "Thanks, both of you. I've learned so much from you too." And I'm ready to take the next step. That evening, Fubuki and Minato sat together in the quiet of their home, watching the stars appear one by one in the night sky. Naruto had gone to bed early, exhausted from a long day of training and preparing for the future. Fubuki leaned against Minato, her hand in his, as they reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. You know, Fubuki said softly, her voice filled with a quiet emotion, I used to wonder if I would ever feel at home here. If I would ever truly belong. But now, I don't feel torn anymore. I don't feel like I'm caught between two worlds. Minato kissed the top of her head, his voice steady with love. That's because you found your place, Fubuki. Right here. With me. With Naruto. Fubuki smiled, her heart full. I know. And I'm not going anywhere. This family, this life, it's everything I've always wanted. And I'll protect it. I'll protect you both, no matter what. Minato squeezed her hand, his eyes filled with pride. We'll protect each other, Fubuki. We've always been a team and we always will be. The next morning, as the sun rose over the village, Naruto stood with Minato and Fubuki in front of the Hokage's office. His posture was different now, stronger, more confident. He wasn't just the son of the Hokage anymore. He was ready to step into his own future, to build something of his own while carrying the legacy of his parents with pride. Ready, Naruto? Minato asked, his voice filled with both love and authority. Naruto nodded, his eyes sparkling with determination. I'm ready. Fubuki placed a hand on his shoulder, her voice soft, but filled with strength. No matter where life takes you, Naruto, remember this, you've got everything you need inside you. Trust in your heart, and trust in the love that surrounds you. Naruto smiled, looking at both of them. I will, Mom. I will. As the family stood together, united in their love and resolve. Fubuki knew that Naruto was ready to take on whatever challenges came his way. He had found his path, and he was no longer burdened by the weight of expectations. He was his own person, a hero in his own right. And as they looked toward the future, Fubuki felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This was her family. Her place. And no matter what happened, no matter what challenges the future held, she would always stand by them. They had made it through everything together, and together, they would face whatever came next. End of Chapter 19. Chapter 20, A New Legacy. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden glow over Konoha. The village, so full of life and energy, felt like a promise of a future filled with hope, growth, and the strength of its people. As Fubuki stood on the balcony of their home, watching the village, she felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The battles of the past, the doubts, the struggles, all of it had led to this moment. This life. This family. Naruto, now a young man, had grown in ways that amazed her every day. He had once been the child with the weight of legacy on his shoulders, struggling to find his place. But now, he was no longer bound by the expectations of his parents or the village. He had forged his own path, a path that was uniquely his. And today, he would prove just how far he had come. Fubuki could feel Minato standing beside her, his presence a constant source of strength. They had weathered so much together, and now, they were watching their son take his first steps into the world as a true hero. He's ready, Minato said quietly, his voice filled with pride. Fubuki nodded, her eyes never leaving Naruto, who was standing on the training field with his friends, preparing for the day ahead. He's more than ready. He's already surpassed everything we could have hoped for. Minato's eyes softened as he looked at her, his hand finding hers. You've done more than anyone could have imagined, Fubuki. You've made us a family. You've helped Naruto become the man he is today. Fubuki smiled at him, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for everything they had built together. And you, Minato. Without you, none of this would be possible. You're not just Konoha's Hokage. You're the heart of this family. Later that day, the Hokage's office was filled with villagers and shinobi, all gathered to celebrate Naruto's official induction as a ninja of the highest caliber. Today was not just about his strength, it was about his heart, his courage, and his unwavering desire to protect those he loved. Today was about the legacy he was creating. Naruto stood before the Hokage, his posture tall and confident. His eyes were bright with excitement, but there was no hesitation in his gaze. He had earned this moment, and he knew it. He wasn't just the son of the Hokage. He was his own person, a hero in his own right. Naruto, Minato said, his voice calm but filled with authority, you've grown into someone we can all look up to. Your courage, your strength, and your heart have already made you a hero. Today, we make it official. You are now a symbol of Konoha's future. A beacon of hope for everyone. Naruto looked out at the gathered crowd, feeling the weight of the moment. He had always dreamed of being a hero, but now, standing here, he realized that the hero he wanted to be was someone who forged his own path, someone who didn't have to live up to anyone else's expectations. It wasn't about being better than his parents or anyone else. It was about doing what was right, about protecting his family, his friends, and the village that had given him everything. Fubuki, standing in the crowd with Minato, couldn't help the tear that slipped down her cheek as she watched her son. She had seen him struggle, had watched him face his fears and doubts. But today, he stood with such confidence, such determination. This was her son. And he was ready to take on whatever the future held. Thank you, Dad, Naruto said, his voice steady, his eyes shining. I'll do my best to protect Konoha, just like you did. But I'll do it in my own way. I promise. Minato smiled, a deep, proud smile that reached his eyes. That's all I ever wanted, Naruto. For you to be yourself. For you to create your own legacy. As the ceremony ended, Fubuki stood in the back, her heart swelling with pride. Naruto had grown into the hero he was always meant to be. She had helped shape him, guided him, and loved him through every trial. But today, she realized that he had surpassed everything she had ever hoped for. He was no longer just a child to protect. He was a young man who would lead, who would inspire. And she had no doubt that he would continue to grow, to protect, and to lead Konoha into the future. Later that evening, the family gathered around the dinner table, the sounds of laughter and conversation filling the air. Naruto, Minato, and Fubuki sat together, their bonds stronger than ever. You did it, Naruto, Fubuki said, her voice thick with emotion. You're a true hero now. Naruto grinned, looking at her with admiration. I couldn't have done it without you, Mom. You've always been there for me. Both of you have. Minato reached across the table, placing a hand on Naruto's. We've always been here for you. And we always will be. Fubuki looked at both of them, her heart full. Together, we've built something amazing. And I know, no matter what challenges come our way, we will face them together. As a family. Naruto smiled, his eyes reflecting the love and strength that had been passed down to him. I'm ready. And I'll never stop fighting for what's important, our family, our village. As the family shared a quiet moment, united in their love and strength, Fubuki felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had come to Konoha as an outsider, unsure of where she belonged. But now, she knew without a doubt that she had found her place. She had created a family. A legacy. And it was one that would endure, no matter what the future held. End of chapter 20. The end to my story.